Chapter 770. Seeing that Tang Zheng was silent, the king continued to add, "Since you have such a strong influence in Europe, no one will dare to touch you. I heard that many people in Huaxia are also hostile to you." Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched. The other party's preparation was indeed sufficient. He even thought of this point. Tang Zheng did not hesitate to leave behind Mount Wujuan and the witch tribe. One of the biggest uses was to restrain the officials and make them wary. Tang Zheng, was not alone. He had a large group of brothers under him. In ancient times, it was often a taboo to have an army for oneself. However, if one had enough soldiers, it was not a taboo, but a deterrent and protective talisman. Moreover, your company will be unimpeded in Europe. This is a very large market. The king continued to throw out the bait. Seeing that Tang Zheng was unmoved, the king could not help but feel anxious. Could it be that his weight was not heavy enough? His mind spun rapidly. Although he was calm and collected, talking cheerfully and wittily, he was actually very anxious in his heart. He had been looking forward to the appearance of a hero like Tang Zheng for a long time. Now that the hero was in front of him, how could he just let him go? As the saying goes, a soldier who does not want to be a general is not a good soldier. He was not a good soldier, but he was a good king. He wanted to improve his country's influence and status in Europe and even the world. His territory was not large, but his ambition was not small. If he could achieve this, then he would leave his name in history. As a king, perhaps this was the only thing that was attractive enough. The king gritted his teeth and said, "I have heard of the rumors about you and Anne, and is the most famous princess in Europe. Many people admire her. I think you're the same. If you agree, I will not pursue the matter between you and your girlfriend. I know that Huaxia has many traditions, including polygamy. I respect your customs." Tang Zheng smacked his lips and almost bit his tongue off. He had really put in a lot of effort to make such a tempting offer. If it was someone else, they would definitely agree without hesitation. Being able to marry the princess of a country was something that many people dreamed of. It was simply like smoke rising from one's ancestral grave. However, Tang Zheng did not have any improper thoughts about Princess Anne. Although Princess Anne was beautiful, there was always a distance between them. When it came to liking someone, appearance was only one of the reasons, but it wasn't the deciding factor. The National Security Agency had endured the pain of using his daughter as a bargaining chip. It could be seen how desperate his thoughts were. Tang Zheng felt a little sad. In ancient times, princesses were often married off to seek peace. Although hundreds and thousands of years had passed, some things had not changed, even in the West, which had always boasted of freedom and democracy. Tang Zheng was not angry. He just felt that under Princess Anne's glamorous appearance, there was actually a lot of unhappiness and bitterness. She was not much different from an ordinary person. At this point, the halo above Princess Anne's head gradually dissipated in Tang Zheng's eyes. He couldn't help but feel that Princess Anne was also amiable. That sense of distance had disappeared without a trace. Tang Zheng knew that Princess Anne had always wanted to improve their relationship, but he had always turned a blind eye. Now, he couldn't help but feel pity for her. In the future, he would treat her better and at least treat her as a friend. The king stared at Tang Zheng. He thought to himself, "I've already lowered myself so much. Are you still not satisfied?" He almost couldn't help but blurt out and directly ask Tang Zheng to state the conditions. Tang Zheng finally opened his mouth. He said neither too fast nor too slow, "Your Majesty, I don't have any improper thoughts about, but I will also agree to this matter." The king was overjoyed, but in his heart, he secretly thought that he must be too embarrassed to admit it. This kind of thing should be understood tacitly. It was indeed too impulsive to say it directly. He nodded towards Tang Zheng with a smile that said, "I know what you're thinking." He stretched out his hand and said, "Then I wish us a happy cooperation." A happy cooperation. Tang Zheng gently shook his hand. "But this matter is too dangerous. I can't just take the risk, and you guys can just sit back and reap the benefits. You guys should at least contribute a little, right? Of course, I have secretly contacted the kings of several countries. They have secretly come to Sweden. I will introduce them to you and discuss the specific details." Tang Zheng said that he was well prepared. He had actually contacted other countries as if he was sure that he would agree. Tang Zheng did not refuse. Next, it was time to negotiate the conditions. He would fight for enough etiquette for himself. The king seemed to be a person who firmly believed in striking while the iron was hot, so he arranged a meeting that night. Although the people in front of him were the rulers of a country that many people admired, in Tang Zheng's eyes, they had already shed their halo and become ordinary people, business partners, negotiation targets. Thus, he did not show any mercy and argued with them. In the end, he won a lot of benefits. In the future, when he truly attacked the Rockefeller family, these countries would have to support him. This support was not in the form of military strength, but in the form of economic support. They would fiercely attack the Rockefeller family's industries and seize the Rockefeller family's benefits. Naturally, these benefits would belong to Tang Zheng, and these countries would not be able to touch them. Although it was a little painful when they thought about how their national strength would rapidly rise without the suppression of the Rockefeller family in the future, the sacrifice was worth it. At the same time, these countries would also attack the Atlantic Empire in the financial market. The most painful thing for a country was the virtual financial market. It would cause a shock in various industries and even shake the foundation of the country. According to the plan, Tang Zheng's company would send people to open up business in Europe to prepare to take over the Rockefeller family's industries in the future. This spoil of war would be huge. It should be known that the Rockefeller family had been in business for hundreds of years, involved in various industries, and was the leader in many of them. Once he took over these, Tang Zheng's industries would rapidly rise. Although it would not reach the current state of the Rockefeller family, in time, it would definitely surpass them. At that time, it would be difficult to resist even if the several major families in Huaxiao were joined forces. His business empire would truly take shape. Fang Shishir was obviously not as good as Tang Zheng. Although the queen and princess and were very friendly on the surface, the queen still had some hostility towards her. Fang Shishir, who was sensitive, was smart enough to feel it, but she could not do anything about it. She could only force a smile. In the dead of night, Tang Zheng and Fang Shishir were arranged in two separate rooms. Obviously, they were not in the same room as Tang Zheng wanted. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, and he did not have the opportunity to talk to Fang Shishir. However, they obviously did not expect Tang Zheng to be so daring. He actually climbed over the wall, climbed through the window, and sneaked into Fang Shishir's room. When Fang Shishir saw the person who climbed in through the window, she almost made a move. However, after seeing the person's face clearly, she was shocked and opened her mouth wide. "You? How did you climb in?" Tang Zheng laughed. "I missed you." The two had not seen each other for several months. The process of their previous meeting could not be said to be wonderful. They had narrowly escaped death. Now that they were finally free, the strong feelings could not help but hit their hearts. Tang Zheng did not care about the rules. No rules could stop him from seeing Fang Shishir and complaining about the pain of lovesickness. He could not help but criticize His Majesty. Knowing that Fang Shishir was his girlfriend, he still insisted on arranging 2 rooms for them. This was blatantly destroying his happiness. After hearing this, Fang Shishir's words of reproach immediately disappeared. Only tenderness was left. She hugged him and said coquettishly, "I miss you too." As the saying goes, absence makes the heart grow fonder. The two of them were originally passionate young men and women. When drywood met a raging fire, it was easy to ignite. In a short while, the room was filled with sounds that made one blush. Fortunately, the room was soundproof, so there was no need to worry about the walls having ears. Because of this, the two of them were very immersed. They even unlocked many new moves, making the two of them feel as if their bodies and minds were floating on top of the clouds. Huff, huff. The two heavily gasped for breath before Tang Zheng flipped over and laid down flat on the ground. Fang Shishir was lying on his chest, her full breast pressing against his chest, causing ripples in one's heart. He once again began to feel restless. Fang Shishir glanced at his lower body. Her face was as red as blood. She pretended to slap him and said, beat this dishonest guy. Hey, what if you break it? Tang Zheng hurriedly stopped her. It's best if you break it. Then you won't attract bees and butterflies. Fang Shishir said coquettishly. Tang Zheng laughed. If you break it, I won't be able to serve you. How can you bear to do that? It would be strange if I didn't. Tang Zheng grabbed her hand and held her in his arms. Don't move. Otherwise, you will really suffer. Be honest. Fang Shishir didn't dare to move again. She was deeply afraid that he would become lively again. She said sourly, Princess, and has a special liking for you. Tang Zheng righteously said, I don't have any thoughts about it. I'm not afraid of thieves stealing, but I'm afraid of thieves remembering. Moreover, there are so many close female friends in the country. Hearing this, Tang Zheng couldn't help but think of Yi Dingdang. He said, Dingdang has left. Fang Shishir knew very well about the matter between Tang Zheng and Yi Dingdang. Back then, Yi Dingdang's parents tried their best to matchmake the two of them, but in the end, she still won the first prize. She was happy for a long time. Later, she also chose to turn a blind eye to the ambiguous relationship between Tang Zheng and Yi Dingdang. This was her philosophy. She wasn't as tough as Yi Dingdang. Her personality was more of a delicate woman's mentality. She liked Tang Zheng, and Tang Zheng also liked her. He even risked his life to save her. In this world, how many men could do this? She felt that this was her luck. Why should she ask for so much? This year of studying and living independently made her think through many things. Love wasn't just about possessing, but more about giving. Tang Zheng gave so much, but how much did she give? Therefore, even though she knew about Tang Zheng's romantic past, she still didn't leave him. Especially after experiencing this matter, she knew that she couldn't leave him in this lifetime. Chapter 771. Fang Shishir sensed Tang Zheng's gloomy mood. She gently stroked his chest and said emotionally, I will never leave you. Tang Zheng's emotions fluctuated as he hugged her even tighter. He wanted nothing more than to rub her into his body. He promised, I will never leave you either. I will always protect you. Fang Shishir gazed deeply into his eyes and nodded. I believe you. Warm as spring, silky and delicate feelings lingered in each other's hearts. After a long time, they slightly calmed down. Tang Zheng asked, Sure, you wore the golden jade purple robe, but those people still caught you and even hurt you. It seems that a mere defensive, transcendent artifact is not enough to protect you. Fang Shishir's expression darkened. This was a cruel reality. She forced a smile and said, Transcendent artifacts are hard to find in this world. This is something that can't be helped. That may not be so. Tang Zheng smiled mysteriously. A rainbow light suddenly appeared in the center of his palm. This rainbow light floated up and illuminated the entire room. Wow! Fang Shishir opened her mouth wide. She had never seen such a brilliant scene in her life. It was like a rainbow, but more beautiful and mysterious than a rainbow. A ribbon floated in the air, giving her the urge to grab it. This rainbow ribbon is for you. For, really? Fang Shishir could not believe it. She could clearly feel the powerful energy contained in it. This was a rare high-grade, transcendent artifact. This is a heaven-grade, transcendent artifact. It is as if it was specially made for you. I specially prepared this gift for you. This was one of the 3 transcendent artifacts that Tang Zheng took out from the 3rd floor of the Langya Pavilion. They were the Clear Wind Sword, the Sacred Armor Shield, and the Rainbow Ribbon. The Clear Wind Sword had already been gifted to Yi Dingdang. The Clear Wind Sword was very compatible with the wind-chasing swordsmanship. The Sacred Armor Shield was an Oracle Bone, a heaven-grade defensive transcendent artifact. Tang Zheng kept it for his own use. However, he had no use for it at the moment. When he was fighting with Qin Shi Huang in the mausoleum, Qin Shi Huang's strength was too strong, and he couldn't resist at all. The Holy Armor Shield couldn't change the situation. In Rockefeller's castle, he had successfully escaped without using the Holy Armor Shield. Therefore, this heaven-grade defensive magic treasure was still in the idle stage. However, the Rainbow Ribbon finally welcomed its new owner. Fang Shishir was overjoyed. She kissed Tang Zheng and said sweetly, You're too good to me. Let's bind it with blood first. Fang Shishir channeled her energy and forced out a drop of essence blood from her finger. It fell on the seven-colored silk. The seven-colored silk shone brightly, making it hard for people to open their eyes. "Collect!" Feng Sure shouted, and the seven-colored light instantly converged. The seven-colored silk wrapped around her waist, and with a flash of light, it turned into a beautiful belt. "Wow, that's great!" Feng Sure was so excited that she danced with joy. Tang Zheng also smiled. Seeing her so happy made him happier than if he had obtained a heaven-grade magic treasure. Making his woman happy was the duty of any true man. In Princess Anne's bedroom, two people were lying on the soft bed, and the queen, the mother and daughter pair, were confiding in each other. "And you never told me that Tang Zheng has a girlfriend?" the queen asked with a straight face, and slyly blinked and said, "You didn't ask me either." The queen was angry, but with her magnanimous nature, she couldn't scold her. She could only earnestly say, "You are the princess. Could it be that you have to tolerate him having other women?" And shrugged and said, "Is there a lack of dirty things in the royal family of each country? How many people secretly have lovers? Mother, you should know, right?" The queen was speechless. In any country, the most chaotic was the royal family. Don't look at the dignified appearance, but the dirty things in the dark were hard to imagine. The queen had been influenced by what she saw and heard over the years. "But this is too much for you," the queen said with heartache. "Actually, I don't know if I like him or not. At most, I have a good impression of him." Anne's eyes were filled with a complicated expression as she said faintly, "If you don't like him, then stop in time." The queen was overjoyed. "But I like to stay with him. It's especially exciting and never monotonous. Moreover, it gives me a sense of security." Princess Anne's eyes were filled with little stars. "Huff, huff." The queen gasped for breath. She was obviously angry and said, "You are wrong. Do you know that?" And shrugged and said, "Is that so? Who knows how many mistakes a person makes in their life? You have taught me since I was young to be cautious and avoid making mistakes. But I really want to make a mistake once and see how it feels." The queen looked as if she didn't recognize her daughter. She stared straight at her and said, "You will regret it." "That's not necessarily true." Anne's eyes were firm. The next day, Tang Zheng walked out of his room and smiled at Feng Sure, who opened the door next door. Feng Shure's face was red as she glared at him. "You're up." And the queen happened to walk in and saw the two exchanging glances, and pretended not to see, but the queen looked at Feng Sure. Her face was flushed and her skin was smooth and delicate. It was very different from yesterday. As someone who had experienced it before, the queen could tell at a glance that Feng Sure was nourished and the result of a balance of yin and yang. The two of them clearly slept in separate rooms. Could it be that they secretly slept together last night? Ridiculous, ridiculous. How could such a thing happen in the Swedish palace, right under their noses? The queen's breathing couldn't help but quicken a bit, but she was very restrained and didn't flip out. Instead, she gave Tang Zheng a deep look. Without a doubt, this kind of lustful matter was definitely his doing. "I'll take you out for a tour today," and warmly invited. Since the business was done, Tang Zheng didn't intend to stay any longer. After all, there were still many things to do in the country. He couldn't contact Tian Shanzi and didn't know what happened in the east that made him so uneasy. "Thank you for your kindness, but I'm preparing to return to my country." Tang Zheng tactfully refused. "Return to your country?" The queen was very surprised, especially when Tang Zheng refused her daughter's kindness. This made her quite unhappy. There was no man in the world who had the heart to refuse, and, without a doubt, Tang Zheng was the first. The queen was about to sternly refute, but beat her to it. "Okay, school is busy, and I have to go back quickly. I can't stay any longer. Mother, we'll leave later. I'll miss you," and gave the queen a big hug. The queen's anger was suppressed in her chest, and she had nowhere to vent it. As an elegant queen, she wouldn't reprimand the man her daughter liked in front of her daughter, even if the man made her very unhappy. This was her basic quality. Thousands of words turned into one sentence. "Mother will miss you even more." After breakfast, Tang Zheng was called by the king to the study for a long time. This time, The focus was on the master-disciple relationship between and Tian Shanzi. Obviously, the king already knew about this strange master-disciple relationship, but he was happy to see it. He had learned from many channels that Tian Shanzi was a very powerful cultivator. His daughter had become a cultivator, so in the future, the royal family could also become cultivators. Why could the Rockefeller family run rampant and no one dare to provoke them? That was because of their unique physique and strong strength. He was stronger than other families and even the European royal family, so he could be so arrogant and suppress them fiercely. The European royal family had never found a way to enhance their own strength. Hua Xiao's martial arts were, of course, powerful, but in fact, she kept it to herself and didn't teach it to outsiders. Not to mention these foreigners, even if they tried their best to learn, they only learned a little. But now it was different. A new broad road was in front of the king. He had heard of Tang Zheng's strength, and he was a real master. If his daughter practiced it, then in the future, she could also teach the skills of cultivation to the royal family. The royal family was powerful and could be superior to other countries. Once the Rockefeller family fell, the Swedish royal family could quickly rise and suppress the other heroes. Just imagining that scene made the king extremely excited. Therefore, before leaving, he specially asked Tang Zheng to take care of and also prepared a big gift for him and Tian Shanzi, 2 special gift boxes made of unknown materials. Tang Zheng knew that the Western people were used to opening gift boxes in front of the host. He was also very curious about what kind of gift the king of a country would give. With his identity, he shouldn't be able to take out ordinary things. Eating and taking was Tang Zheng's favorite thing to do. He solemnly opened the box, and inside the 2 boxes laid a fist-sized, shiny object that looked like a crystal. "What are these?" Tang Zheng asked, puzzled. Were they just 2 big crystals? That was a bit too shabby. Crystals weren't worth much. As if he could see his disappointment, the king hurriedly introduced as if he was presenting a treasure. These 2 crystals were found in a meteorite impact 100 years ago. According to our investigation, they contain a powerful energy, but we have no way to extract it. I thought that since you practitioners are so powerful, giving pearls to heroes, maybe you have a way. Crystals? Tang Zheng was full of doubts. There were too many uncertainties in the things found in meteorites. Maybe it was a waste stone that was useless on other planets, or it could contain treasures, elements that didn't exist on Earth. By examining and processing this kind of meteorite, many things could be made, such as weapons. Many famous knives and swords in ancient times were made of meteorite iron contained in meteorites. They could cut iron like mud and cut hair. They were the favorite of swordsmen. Was there energy in it? Tang Zheng was skeptical, but he casually grabbed a crystal. Whoosh! Tang Zheng's breathing quickened involuntarily. He opened his eyes wide and looked at the crystal in his palm in disbelief. His genuine qi was running on its own. A stream of energy was transferred from the crystal to his palm and flowed to his 8 extraordinary meridians. This energy was very pure, without a trace of impurities. It was even purer than the spirit stones he used before. Although it was only a small piece, the energy contained in it was immeasurable. How could ordinary pearls and gems compare to this? This was a priceless treasure. Chapter 772. Crystal stones were a higher-level existence than spirit stones. It was a cultivation treasure that cultivators yearned for even in their dreams. However, there were very few of them in the world, and they could only be found in some meteorites. Although Tang Zheng did not know this point, he could already confirm that crystal stones were very important to his future cultivation. He happily put away the gift box and said, "Thank you, Your Majesty." Looking at Tang Zheng's reaction, the king knew that this gift was the right one. He secretly thought that the remaining crystal stones would definitely be of great use to and in the future. "Then I will leave and in your care in the future. Send my regards to Tian Shanzi," the king said with a smile. Tang Zheng, Feng Shi, and Annie took a private jet to leave Sweden and return home. They landed at the Beijing International Airport, and without the entourage of attendants, they returned to the city in a light car, and looked at Tang Zheng and asked, Tang Zheng, you must have found a new place to live, right? Yeah. Tang Zheng was speechless. A woman's mind was very meticulous. Seeing that he had not returned to his original home for a long time, she actually guessed this point. He could not deny it and could only nod his head. Then can I go and take a look? And looked at him with her big, sparkling eyes. He could not refuse and could only nod his head. Asterisk she asterisk when they arrived at the villa and covered her mouth and exclaimed, "Wow, so you are living in such a luxurious place. No wonder you did not return to your previous home." Tang Zheng was speechless and rolled his eyes. Compared to her family's palace, this was a world of difference. Just as they entered the house, Nana flew down from upstairs. She jumped into Tang Zheng's arms and happily shouted, "Brother, you are finally back." Tang Zheng patted her back and said, "Yes, I miss Nana, so I came back." "I miss you too." Nana pouted and looked at her with her big black eyes. Empyrean Fairy and Marshall also walked down the stairs. Empyrean Fairy glanced at Tang Zheng indifferently, and then focused all of her attention on Nana. The other two beauties did not attract her attention at all. When Wu saw Tang Zheng, she was a little excited, but when she saw Fang Shishir, her expression became a little awkward. Fang Shishir recognized Marshall, so he was not surprised, but towards the Empyrean Fairy, he could not help but take a few more glances. Although the Empyrean Fairy had deliberately concealed her charm, she was still extremely beautiful, and was dumbfounded. She exclaimed, "Wow, Huaxia has an idiom. A golden house hide the mistress." Yes, this is what it means to keep a mistress in a golden house. Tang Zheng almost spat out a mouthful of blood. "How can you fan the flames like this? Do you think it's not chaotic enough?" Fang Shishir's expression remained the same, as if he did not hear those words. Tang Zheng hurriedly introduced both parties, changing the topic. "They all live here, and the rooms are also like this. I also want to choose one. I don't want to go back and live in that empty house alone." And was not polite at all. She directly said and ran upstairs to choose a room. Tang Zheng had no choice but to give up. Sure. Go and choose a room." Tang Zheng said. "I'll take her." Marshall took the initiative to say. Fang Shishir smiled faintly at her and thanked her before the two of them went upstairs. As for the Empyrean Fairy, she directly sat on the sofa and said without batting an eyelid, "Something seems to have happened in the east." Tang Zheng was stunned and asked, "You know about it too?" "I have a feeling, but I'm still unable to determine what it is." Empyrean Fairy had been wholeheartedly teaching her disciple Nana during this period of time. She was not distracted at all, and the matters of the outside world could not disturb her. Tang Zheng was puzzled. Not only did Tian Chanzi have feelings for him, but even Empyrean Fairy was no exception. This was not an illusion, but something big had happened. But what could it be? Tian Chanzi could not be contacted, so he had no way of knowing. His heart felt like it was being pressed down by a stone. He felt uneasy and decided to give Su Yingtian a call to see if he had any information. Su Yingtian's voice was somewhat tired. After returning from Heaven Mountain, he had arrested so many terrorists. During this period of time, he had been so busy that his feet did not touch the ground. Of course, these achievements had greatly increased the chief's impression of him. The negative impression of him had gradually been made up. When he heard Tang Zheng's voice, his tone returned to normal. He said, "Congratulations on successfully rescuing Miss Fang." Tang Zheng hurriedly thanked him. If he had not ordered Ding Liang to fully cooperate with him, he would not have been able to achieve such a victory. "Last time, I said that something big had happened in the East. Do you have any news? I was just about to contact you. I just received the news not long ago. Something happened in the island nation. Many people died, and there was a strange phenomenon in the sky. This matter was kept secret very well. The people did not know at all. I also paid a huge price to obtain this information." Tang Zheng was silent. The deaths of many people and the strange phenomenon in the sky made his heart thump. His mood sank to the bottom. Wouldn't this be the case when the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array was activated? Could it be that someone had activated the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array in the island nation? If that was the case, this person had to be the Hundred Faces Star-Lord. Tang Zheng had always been wary of the Hundred Faces Star Lord activating this array in the country. He did not expect that he would not do this at all. Instead, he went to the island nation. The island nation was adjacent to Huaxia. The spiritual energy was not too thin, especially when the Tree of Life was gradually improving the spiritual energy in the world. This caused the spiritual energy in the island nation to become even denser. This was something that Tang Zheng had personally experienced in the island nation the last time. There were restrictions to activating the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array and summoning the demons back. It had to be near Huaxia, a place with abundant spiritual energy. Otherwise, the array would not be successfully activated. If it were not for this restriction, the Rockefeller family would not have traveled thousands of miles and risked exposure to activate this array in Heavenly Mountain. The Hundred Faces Star Lord was obviously smarter than the Rockefeller family and knew more about the secrets. Therefore, he took a step back and completed this operation in the island nation. Moreover, more people died in the sacrifice because, after all, it was in the island nation and not Huaxia. In order to maximize the effect, the Hundred Faces Star Lord did not hesitate to sacrifice several times more people. Although Tang Zheng was unwilling to admit it, he knew that his worries were probably true. The demons had returned to this world. The thing that he had always wanted to stop had happened. A strong sense of frustration hit him, causing him to lie on the sofa in defeat. Nana sensed his depression and crawled over. She asked with concern, "Brother, what's wrong?" Tang Zheng took a deep breath and shook his head weakly. "Tang Zheng, what's wrong?" Su Yingtian also sensed that something was wrong and quickly asked, "Director Su, I'm afraid that what we have always wanted to stop has failed in the end. The demons have returned." Su Yingtian let out a scream. With a thud, the phone fell to the ground. He quickly picked it up and asked breathlessly, "Are you sure?" "I'm pretty sure. Could it be that someone in the island nation has activated the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array?" "Yes, and this must be done by the Hundred Faces Star Lord." Su Yingtian's breathing was like a bellows. He could not calm down for a long time. Finally, he asked helplessly, "Then what should we do?" "Make all the preparations. The demons have returned. This world is going to be in chaos." Tang Zheng said weakly, "I'll immediately report to the director." Su Yingtian did not have time to say more and quickly hung up the phone. Tang Zheng closed his eyes and sank into the sofa. His brain was spinning rapidly. The demons had returned. How should he deal with them? With his cultivation, he was afraid that there was no way to deal with them. Although he was already a second-grade golden core, the demons had more masters and greater destructive power. With his own strength, it was like a mantis trying to stop a car. Do I really have to rebuild the stairway to heaven and let all the practitioners in the human realm beyond heaven return to resist the demon's attack? But my cultivation has not reached the level to break the restriction of the imperial city and release the five-clawed golden dragon. How can I take out the dark stone of heaven and earth under the imperial city? He shook his head violently and was very confused. Empyrean Fairy looked at him curiously and said, "What happened? I heard you say that the demons have returned. Are the demons in the human realm beyond heaven coming back?" Empyrean Fairy already knew the details of the expulsion of the practitioners to the human realm beyond heaven hundreds of years ago. Tang Zheng let out a long sigh and said, "Yes." "Then what's the trouble? They were originally people of this world." Empyrean Fairy did not take it seriously. "The demons have existed in this world for thousands of years. What's the fuss about their return?" Tang Zheng shook his head. "It's not what you think. The demons are cruel by nature. Once they return, the people in this world will suffer." Empyrean Fairy looked at him strangely and said, "You and Qin Shi Huang are both Skywalkers, but there is a big difference between the two of you. He will never be troubled like you. The lives of ordinary people are like ants in his eyes. He will never care about their lives. He is the emperor of all ages. I'm just an ordinary person. I can't be like him." Tang Zheng smiled bitterly. "Then what are you going to do?" Empyrean Fairy asked curiously. Tang Zheng shook his head. "I have not thought of a way yet. I can only wait and see." Tian Chanzi went to the island nation. "Let's wait for his news." Since the demons had returned, Tang Zheng could not leave Huaxia. What if the demons returned and the people around him were harmed? The most important thing now was to figure out the movements of the demons after they returned. Were they still in the island nation, or had they already snuck back to Huaxia, and what their goal was? However, the necessary preparations could still be done. Lu Qingmei was still on a business trip, so he had to return to the capital as soon as possible. He was more at ease with his own woman by his side, so that he could protect them to the greatest extent. As for his grandfather, Tang Zheng had already made plans for Yi Yuan to bring him and the rest of the witch clan, including the elders of the witch clan who were overseas, to the island. That was his final base camp. The island was safer than the mainland. Chapter 773. The excuse that Tang Zheng had prepared did not come in handy. The old man was very reasonable and casually agreed. In fact, as long as it was Tang Zheng's decision, the old man would generally not oppose it. He knew that he could not drag his grandson down. Since his grandson did this, then there must be a reason. He would just do as he was told. Seeing that the old man was so reasonable, Tang Zheng was moved and thought of something else. The Empyrean fairy had once said that the life-prolonging pill only had one effect in a person's life, which meant that his grandfather still had 9 years of life left. Tang Zheng was gloomy. He decided that the next time they met, he would definitely teach his grandfather the cultivation method. Although it was a bit late for him, it would still improve his physique and have the effect of prolonging his life. Then he contacted Yi Yuan, the witch clan elder, and Wu Junshan respectively, explaining the seriousness of the situation in detail. He ordered the three of them to meet up and move everyone to the island, as well as guard against any possible dangers. They also felt the seriousness of their attitude, and their tones were heavy. After explaining all this, Tang Zheng called Lu Qingmei. Lu Qingmei's voice had a trace of experience. In the past, she was an ice beauty, but after meeting Tang Zheng, her ice mountain melted. Even the way she treated people and things in her life became a lot gentler, not as cold as before. However, after leaving school and entering the workplace, her personality had changed quite a bit. When she received a call from Tang Zheng, she was pleasantly surprised. Although the two of them were close, they did not talk on the phone like a normal young couple in love. Even the few women around Tang Zheng were not like this. They all understood that Tang Zheng had too many things to do, so it was impossible for him to take out so much time to talk about love with them like a normal boy. This bit of understanding and tolerance was precious. When Tang Zheng occasionally thought about it, he could not help but feel a warm current flowing through his heart. After receiving a call from Tang Zheng, Lu Qingmei was very happy. "Sister Mei, what are you busy with? I just finished talking to my client. Why are you so obedient and calling me?" Lu Qingmei said gently. "I missed you," Tang Zheng said sincerely. These were indeed words from the bottom of her heart. She had not seen Lu Qingmei for quite some time, so she really missed her teacher. Fortunately, he was making the call in his bedroom. Otherwise, if the women outside heard it, who knew what kind of bloody case it would cause? Lu Qingmei was silent for a while before she said emotionally, "I miss you too. Sister Mei, are you done with your work?" "Almost. What's wrong? Come back quickly. Do you really miss me so much that you can't wait to see me?" Lu Qingmei asked mischievously. "Yes." Tang Zheng didn't tell her the real reason because he didn't want to scare her. "All right, I'll fly back tomorrow. You have to pick me up at the airport. I will definitely be there." In the evening, Mu Hongyan came back from work. This time, the room full of beauties became even more lively. Even Fang Shishir couldn't help but look at him a few more times, making him feel like he was sitting on pins and needles. Mu Hongyan and Fang Shishir were old acquaintances. After meeting, they were very close. After dinner, Mu Hongyan looked at the room full of girls. In order to avoid arousing suspicion, she was going to take Nana back to her home. Nana insisted on staying. Coupled with Fang Shishir's persuasion, she also stayed. A room full of beauties. Only Tang Zheng was a man. It was really like entering a country of women. There were all kinds of beauties, a feast for the eyes. Tang Zheng didn't have much mood to appreciate the beauty. He went to the study with Mu Hongyan to talk about Europe. When she heard that he was going to expand the company's business to Europe, Mu Hongyan was shocked. Aren't you selling a bit too much? Although we are already famous in China, isn't it too early to go to Europe? Mu Hongyan evaluated with her own professional vision. Tang Zheng shook his head and said, I have already talked to several European royal families. They will give us green light and give us the greatest help. You don't have to worry. The European market will be easier to develop than the domestic market. Moreover, this is to prepare for taking over the Rockefeller family's business in the future. This step must be taken. Hiss. This time, Mu Hongyan was really shocked. Of course, she knew about the Rockefeller family. It was because she knew that she was so shocked when she heard the news. It was the world's top behemoth. Tang Zheng actually said that he wanted to take over the Rockefeller family. Mu Hongyan felt that the world was too crazy. Although Tang Zheng was very good and often created miracles, Mu Hongyan still felt that what he said was impossible. I have already talked to several European royal families. When the time comes, they will help us deal with this matter. You can rest assured, so I want you to send someone you can trust to Europe. I'll go. Mu Hongyan volunteered herself without hesitation. No, Tang Zheng quickly rejected. He kept some of the people who were important to him by his side. How could he let her go? Why? There is no why. Tang Zheng did not tell her about the return of the devil race, so as to save her trouble. Mu Hongyan was not a person who was easy to persuade, especially in business. She was a complete strong woman. I have to go. This matter is too sensitive and too important. I must go to do it well. Others may mess it up. This, Tang Zheng still wanted to argue, but Mu Hongyan had already decided. It's settled. I'll go to Europe tomorrow. During this time, I'll have to trouble you to help me take care of Nana. Seeing her so insistent, Tang Zheng thought about it again. After the return of the devil race, they would definitely not go to Europe. Instead, they would mess around in Huaxia. Then there would be no threat in Europe. Therefore, if she went to Europe, she would leave the center of the storm and be safer. Well, take care of yourself. Tang Zheng promised, but did not forget to remind her. In the dead of night, Tang Zheng was lying alone in bed. Although there were many beautiful women living in this house, there were only two who really had an intimate relationship with him. However, he did not dare to sneak into bed like he did in the palace. The walls had ears. If he was discovered by someone, it would be embarrassing. Moreover, favoritism would hurt people's hearts. As the saying goes, one monk has water to drink, 2 monks have water to drink, and 3 monks have no water to drink. Tang Zheng's situation was similar. If there was only one woman, he could hold her in his arms with a clear conscience. But there were 2 women, so he could only lie in bed alone. The next day, Mu Hongyan went to the company early, arranged the work, and then flew directly to Europe. Tang Zheng also came to the airport alone. When he saw Lu Qingmei coming out of the airport, he quickly greeted her and gave her a big hug. In public, Lu Qingmei failed to live up to expectations and blushed. Ever since she was young, she had never let go of anything so easily. But his embrace was so warm, kind, and comfortable that she couldn't extricate herself and didn't want to separate. After a long time, the two finally separated. Looking at the familiar face close at hand, Tang Zheng smiled and said, Sister May, you've become more beautiful. So you mean I was ugly before? Of course not. You used to be very beautiful, but now you're even more beautiful. You're just making me happy. I've been so busy during this time. I feel old. You've really become more beautiful, and your skin is better. Tang Zheng said seriously. Lu Qingmei's eyes bloomed with joy. Her colleagues often praised her like this. She occasionally noticed this when she looked in the mirror. Her skin was indeed smoother and more delicate than before, and even her physique had become more outstanding. In fact, this was all thanks to her cultivation. After the toxins in her body were removed, her skin was moisturized by the true qi. Naturally, it was ruddy and lustrous, as delicate as jade. Well, you're a sweet talker. I'll reward you later. What reward? Tang Zheng smiled evilly. Lu Qingmei pinched him fiercely and said, What nonsense are you thinking in your head? You're asking for a beating. Well, don't hit me. So many people are watching you murder your husband in public. It's not good for your reputation. Tang Zheng said mischievously. Who's my husband? I think you're getting more and more improper. Lu Qingmei took his hand and sat in the car with him. They went straight to Lu Qingmei's house. I'm going to take a shower, and then we'll go eat together. Lu Qingmei put down her luggage and went into the bathroom, leaving Tang Zheng sitting alone. Listening to the sound of water coming from the bathroom, his mood had already drifted in. But Lu Qingmei deliberately locked the door, so he couldn't break in even if he wanted to. Sister Mei, do you want me to scrub your back? Tang Zheng asked. No, everyone knows Sima Zhao's heart. Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. Tang Zheng said with a bitter face, my heart is very pure. It's a pleasure to help others. Teacher Lu, didn't you teach me this in the past? You're not allowed to call me Teacher Lu. Lu Qingmei said coquettishly. Every time she heard Tang Zheng call her Teacher Lu, she would feel flustered. Tang Zheng didn't listen. He had already tested her several times. Every time he called her Teacher Lu, she would become agitated and sensitive. This was her Achilles heel. So, he turned a deaf ear and mischievously called out, Teacher Lu, let's take a shower together. This way we can save water. Bang! The bathroom door was suddenly pushed open. Lu Qingmei, wrapped in a bath towel, rushed out with a red face and angrily said, Didn't I tell you not to call me Teacher Lu? See how I'll deal with you. She directly pounced on Tang Zheng and began to punch and kick him. Tang Zheng pretended to be pitiful and shouted, A teacher is hitting a student. I want to protest. Your protest is invalid. The one I'm hitting is you. Disobedient, bad student. The two wrestled into a ball, gasping for breath. Not long after, Lu Qingmei's bath towel was torn off, revealing her naked body. Tang Zheng's clothes also became extremely messy. Tang Zheng tightly hugged her, his hands moving up and down her body. She didn't have the strength to resist and allowed him to do whatever he wanted. However, she was very happy in her heart. Her eyes were watery, like melted ice. Go to the bed. Lu Qingmei couldn't help but hook her arms around his neck. Right here, on the living room sofa. We haven't tried it yet, Tang Zheng said with a mischievous smile. Chapter 774. After a hearty battle, the two hugged each other. Lu Qingmei was lying in his arms. Tang Zheng's fingers touched a strand of her hair and twirled it around his fingertips. The fresh fragrance of her hair lingered at the tip of his nose. Sister Mei, I'll give you 2 magic weapons. Magic weapons? Really? Lu Qingmei propped up her upper body in surprise. Her snow-white chest swayed in front of Tang Zheng's eyes, making his mouth dry and his tongue restless. Lu Qingmei winked playfully. You want to be naughty again? If you don't seduce me, I won't. Come on, I'm not afraid of you. Lu Qingmei deliberately licked her lips. At the beginning, Tang Zheng still had the initiative, but later on, Lu Qingmei took the initiative. After all, Lu Qingmei was not a young girl like Fang Shishir. She was a few years older than Tang Zheng and more mature. Moreover, she had been separated from Tang Zheng for so long. Once her emotions were aroused, she was very fierce. The battle just now was very fierce, and Tang Zheng was almost defeated. Let's talk about business first. I'll deal with you after I rest for a while. Tang Zheng coughed awkwardly. With a thought, the dragon-trapped rope and the sumaru bag appeared in his palm. What are these? Lu Qingmei's attention was immediately attracted by these 2 magic weapons. This is the dragon-trapped rope. It can be used to attack and defend. It's very useful for self-defense. This is the sumaru bag. Don't you women have a lot of things? With this, you don't have to take a suitcase when you go out in the future. Wow, so magical. Although Lu Qingmei was also a cultivator, it was the first time she had come into contact with magic weapons. Of course, I have removed my connection with them. After dripping blood to bind them, they will be yours. These 2 magic weapons were almost useless to Tang Zheng. Moreover, among the few women around him, only Lu Qingmei didn't have a magic weapon. Of course, Tang Zheng couldn't favor one and discriminate against the other. Thus, he gave her his Dharma treasure. Lu Qingmei excitedly dripped a drop of blood to bind it to her, and then familiarized herself with the use of the magic weapon. She played with it so much that she even ignored Tang Zheng's request for a battle, which made Tang Zheng not know whether to laugh or cry. Sister May, there's another reason why I called you back to the capital. Recently, the world is not peaceful. For your safety, you'd better not leave the capital and move to my place. In any case, he already had a house full of women, so he didn't mind adding one more. If she wanted to kill him or torture him, it was all up to her. Move to your place? Lu Qingmei stopped playing with the magic weapon and looked at him suspiciously. Yes, this is for your safety. Who else do you have there? A woman's sixth sense was truly terrifying. She immediately asked. Tang Zheng said resentfully, there are still a few people. Women? Cough, cough. Tang Zheng dryly coughed. Not only women, there are also children. Who are there? There are Shi, Wu, and Nana that you know. There are also Fu Yao and that you don't know. Fang Shi. Lu Qingmei immediately frowned, and her whole body became uncomfortable. I am her teacher. If you let me go to your place, how will I face her? Actually, you're not that different in age. You could be friends. Tang Zheng shamelessly advised. I'm not going. Lu Qingmei immediately frowned. What kind of identity do I have to live with you? Moreover, I have to face Fang Shi. It's so embarrassing. But I'm worried about your safety. Tang Zheng earnestly persuaded. If I say I'm not going, then I'm not going. I can take care of myself. Moreover, this is the capital. What kind of danger can there be? Moreover, aren't you also in the capital? If there's danger, you can come and save me. Tang Zheng scratched his head. He really couldn't think of a way to persuade her. But for the sake of safety, how could he be at ease to let her live here alone? Thus, he steeled his heart and said, even if you don't want to go, you have to go. I'm not going. Let's see what you can do to me. I'll kidnap you. You can try. I'll try. Tang Zheng immediately hugged her. She hurriedly struggled. Not long after, the two were once again wrestling. This time, they fought from the living room to the bedroom. In the end, Tang Zheng displayed his might and obtained victory. Lu Qingmei was unreasonably kidnapped by him. Sitting in the car, Lu Qingmei was restless. Her face was as red as an apple. She didn't know what kind of deadlock she would face. When she saw the room full of beautiful women, she really had a dazzling feeling. Even as a woman, she couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement. If any other man were to come here, he would probably have a nosebleed. Lu Qingmei fiercely glared at Tang Zheng from the corner of her eyes. It was as if she was silently asking him when he established such a big country of women. Fang Shi was very surprised to see Lu Qingmei. The two hadn't seen each other since graduation. Tang Zheng still didn't dare to openly say that Lu Qingmei was his woman. He only said that it wasn't too peaceful recently, so he asked teacher Lu to stay here for a while. Fang Shi was very happy. She was alone and wasn't familiar with the others. She was bored to death. With Lu Qingmei, she just happened to have one more companion. Only Wu looked deeply at Lu Qingmei, but didn't say anything. She had been by Tang Zheng's side for a long time. She was clearer than anyone about the women by his side. She was sure that the relationship between Tang Zheng and Lu Qingmei was definitely not as simple as a student and teacher. On the other hand, it was Princess Annie who was carefree as she casually said, Tang Zheng, you really made me drop my glasses. Where did you go to kidnap this great beauty? Didn't I say it before? She is my teacher. Tang Zheng said without changing his expression, and curled her lips. She didn't believe him and said, your lies are only for sure. Tang Zheng was incomparably embarrassed. Could it be that his ability to lie was so bad? Seeing that she was about to ask more questions, Tang Zheng's phone rang, allowing him to escape a calamity. The phone call was from Su Yingtian. He wanted him to see him immediately because there was something important. Tang Zheng greeted the girls and hurriedly left. There were too many women in this group, so it was better to temporarily avoid them. Moreover, there was Empyrean Fairy at home, so he was very relieved. Tang Zheng once again came to the heavily guarded courtyard house. Su Yingtian brought him through the layers of checkpoints. Tang Zheng could clearly feel that this time, whether it was in the open or in the dark, the defense was even stronger. It seemed that the authorities were also quite afraid of the return of the demon clan. Su Yingtian's face was gloomy the entire time. He warned in a low voice, "Listen more and speak less later. Don't speak carelessly. It will only cause trouble." Tang Zheng had already guessed a bit and asked, "Is it about the return of the demon clan?" "Yes." Su Yingtian didn't hide anything. "I've already reported this matter to the chief. The chief attaches great importance to this matter, so he called for this high-level secret meeting. Many heads will be participating. The implications are huge, so don't speak casually." "Then why did you call me here?" "You are a cultivator and know everything about the demon clan. Moreover, you are a consultant of our National Security Bureau, which is equivalent to a professional. Perhaps we will ask for your opinions and suggestions." Hearing that he was going to meet so many heads, Tang Zheng was very calm, without the slightest bit of nervousness or excitement. He nodded expressionlessly and said, "I understand." The two came to a large conference room. As far as the eye could see, there were already more than 10 people sitting there. All of them had the face of an official. Many of them were big shots who often appear in the news. Tang Zheng did not care much about these things, nor did he recognize who exactly was who. He just sat down in a back row and looked down, as if this matter had nothing to do with him. Su Yingtian went to do other things. Tang Zheng was bored to death. He turned his eyes and swept them over each face. Perhaps if it were anyone else, they would have already been so excited that they could not control themselves, but Tang Zheng's state of mind was truly very mysterious. The matters of the outside world could not affect his mood at all. These people either lowered their heads and whispered or talked loudly. No one paid attention to Tang Zheng sitting in the back row against the wall. Suddenly, Tang Zheng's eyes turned to the door and saw a familiar face walk in. His pupils could not help but shrink. Xingfeng. He actually came too. Tang Zheng frowned inwardly. Xingfeng also saw Tang Zheng, and a light flashed through his eyes. When enemies met, their eyes would be exceptionally red. The two had already formed many grudges, and each wanted to get rid of the other. However, in this situation, there was clearly no need to make a big fuss. They only glanced at each other from afar, all of their hatred unspoken. Xingfeng did not directly have the qualifications to sit at the conference table. Instead, he sat in the back row and looked at Tang Zheng from afar. From this, it could be seen how high the standard of this meeting was. Dong dong dong. A series of powerful footsteps sounded, and the burly bureau chief walked in. Everyone hurriedly stood up. Tang Zheng did not want to be unconventional, so he also stood up. Su Yingtian followed beside the bureau chief and sat at the end of the conference table. Although his seat was at the back, he was at the conference table after all. Obviously, he was treated much better than Xingfeng. In fact, the reason Su Yingtian could sit in this position was all thanks to Tang Zheng. The Tianshan operation not only crushed the Rockefeller family's conspiracy, but also captured the terrorists who had been hiding. This was crucial to the stability and unity of the country. This time, Su Yingtian was the first to report the return of the demons to his superiors. Su Yingtian's position naturally rose. Moreover, he was an old man for decades. Compared to Xingfeng, who seemed to have soared into the sky, his foundation was more stable and he was more popular. Tang Zheng glanced at Xingfeng, only to see him glancing at Su Yingtian without leaving a trace. The cold light that flashed in his eyes was shocking to see. Dogs can't change their habits. Xingfeng is indeed up to no good. Tang Zheng thought silently and sat down with the others without saying a word. There were also people sitting on both sides of Tang Zheng. They sat upright and still and did not smile. Obviously, they were not small officials. In this room, other than the waiters who served tea and water, Tang Zheng was the youngest. Fortunately, the bureau chief attracted everyone's attention. Otherwise, he would have become the center of attention. It was not easy for a new face to sneak into a meeting of this level. There were many people who were curious about him. Tang Zheng already saw some people secretly glancing at him a few times. Chapter 775. The bureau chief's expression was serious as he said, "This is top secret information. Everyone, remember the rules of confidentiality. Once you see it, remember it in your heart. You're not allowed to spread it. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Their originally relaxed expressions were immediately replaced by an unprecedented seriousness. The staff immediately distributed the information. There were a few simple pieces of A4 paper and photos. Everyone immediately lowered their heads to read. Tang Zheng also received a copy. He carefully read it. There was an introduction to the demon race and the expulsion of cultivators hundreds of years ago. It was the same as what Tang Zheng knew. He focused more on the photos. His heart skipped a beat. These photos were very cruel. They were all corpses with long bloodstains on their necks. There were probably tens of thousands of corpses. The other photos clearly showed a strange pattern. Complicated dark red lines outlined a huge pattern on the ground. Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched. Wasn't this the formation of the mountain river blood sacrifice array? Those red lines were formed by blood. Moreover, this formation was bigger than the one on Sky Mountain. The last photo was taken of the sky. Dark clouds gathered and formed a huge circle, like a tornado. One could vaguely see human figures moving in the dark clouds. It was frightening. Tang Zheng closed his eyes after reading it. He leaned back in his chair and took a few deep breaths. His heart was pounding. Originally, he was 90% sure that the demon race had returned. Now that he saw these photos, the return of the demon race was a certainty. He really wanted to question Hundred Faces' Star-Lord. Why did he do this? To unify this planet? He had been trapped in Mount Buzhou for tens of thousands of years. How could he still have such ambitions? However, when he thought of Hundred Transformations' Star-Lord's childish appearance, he felt a chill in his heart. Back then, Hundred Transformations' Star-Lord had wanted to turn them all into dolls. Hundred Transformations' Star-Lord had probably done so purely for fun. He had treated the world as a game, and everyone as dolls in the game. He had already limited himself to playing with a few people. He wanted to play with the world in the palm of his hand. Tang Zheng cursed fiercely in his heart. Why didn't anyone kill him back then? Why did he just trap him in Mount Buzhou? Why did no one stop him after tens of thousands of years? Originally, Tang Zheng thought that his cultivation speed was very fast and was already very satisfied. He couldn't wait to increase his cultivation by a few times. That way, he might be able to stop the 100-change Star Sovereign's absurd actions. The others reacted even more strongly than Tang Zheng. Although it was difficult for them to grasp the truth and severity of the matter from this simple information, the information revealed was something many of them had never heard of before. Even though the ranks of the participants were very high, many people were still unfamiliar with Xiuzhe, much less the MO. Therefore, other than being shocked, they were also somewhat at a loss. The bureau chief glanced at everyone and took in their reactions. He said in a deep voice, "Whether you understand it or not, listen to what I'm going to say next." Shua. Everyone immediately sat up straight and listened attentively. The demon race is extremely powerful and cruel by nature. If the multiform star sovereign summons the demon race back, then this world will be in chaos and the people will be plunged into misery and suffering. As the rulers, we can't just watch the people fall into danger and have to come up with a countermeasure. This time, we'll gather the wisdom of the masses and come up with a countermeasure to be implemented immediately. The bureau chief's words were sonorous and powerful. Even Tang Zheng couldn't help but open his eyes and size him up. The bureau chief had been in a high position for a long time, but he still had a sense of responsibility in his heart. He had to be responsible for the tens of thousands of people. This made Tang Zheng feel very gratified. At least, these officials weren't as lazy as the rumors said. They still had justice in their hearts. Since the demon race is returning from an island nation, there must be traces of them crossing the ocean. We'll send troops to attack and intercept their ships or planes. We won't let them take a single step in a Huaxia. We'll just have to fend them off outside the country's gates, someone suggested resolutely. The others nodded. This method is feasible. We definitely can't let the flames of war spread to our own land. The war decades ago already caused our country to suffer great damage. We can't let the construction and achievements of these decades be destroyed in a day. No one was willing to let everything that was flourishing today go up in flames. If there was a crisis, solving it on the sea was instead the most perfect strategy. Yes, we've developed for decades and are already the second most powerful country in the world. We're not to be trifled with. The demon race was very powerful hundreds of years ago, but they might not be that powerful now. Now that technology is so advanced, the power of technology has far surpassed that of humans. Although there was a detailed introduction of the demon race in the information, it was hard for people who didn't experience it for themselves to imagine how powerful they were. It was even harder to imagine how powerful that cultivation world was. People who had experienced modern education wouldn't think that the strength of the human body could contend with guns and cannons. Many others also seemed to be encouraged and offered suggestions. Their morale gradually rose, as if they didn't take the demon race seriously at all. In their eyes, perhaps the ancients from hundreds of years ago were ignorant and ignorant. That was why they spread false rumors and made the demon race so powerful. Tang Zheng sighed inwardly. Although this kind of high morale could be used and didn't destroy their own morale or boost the prestige of others, pride and arrogance would lead to great losses. Although he wanted to listen more and speak less, he saw that these people didn't realize the seriousness of the problem at all. Instead, they spoke with assurance and assurance. In the end, the ones who died were countless officers and soldiers. He really couldn't bear it. The demon race isn't as simple as you think. Tang Zheng's voice wasn't very loud, but this contrary tone was extremely ear-piercing and immediately attracted everyone's attention. Many people turned their heads to look for the speaker, but after looking for a long time, they still couldn't figure out who it was. Who is the one boosting the morale of others and destroying their own prestige? Cowering before the battle is a great taboo for military strategists. Who is it? Obediently stand up for me, someone shouted. The people around Tang Zheng heard him speak and couldn't help but lock their gazes on him. The others finally found their target and began to pay attention. Sharp gazes focused on his face, but Tang Zheng was completely unaware. He indifferently swept his gaze over the person who had reprimanded him and said, "I'm right here. Who are you? So young, yet you're already speaking nonsense." The other party was stunned, apparently not expecting that such an excessively young person would be present at the meeting. He instantly became even more displeased. Most of the people here were old comrades. Since when was it the turn of a brat who was still wet behind the ears to criticize them? Hearing the other party reprimanding him for speaking nonsense, Tang Zheng unhappily frowned. He had sincerely raised his opinion to prevent them from suffering losses, but now it was his fault. Tang Zheng was in a bad mood, but he didn't care about Su Yingtian's warning. He loudly said, "Without investigation, you have no right to speak. You don't understand the actual situation, so why do you say I'm speaking nonsense?" "I don't understand the actual situation, but do you?" The other party fiercely retorted. Tang Zheng shrugged and said, "In any case, I understand a little more than you." Seeing that the atmosphere was at daggers drawn, Su Yingtian couldn't sit still and hurriedly stood up to smooth things over. "This is Tang Zheng, the consultant of our National Security Bureau." Tang Zheng. Many people immediately frowned. Although they didn't immediately recognize Tang Zheng, many people were not unfamiliar with this name. After all, he frequently appeared in various major events, so these big shots would often inadvertently see his name appear in various reports. Seeing the real person this time, they couldn't help but be secretly surprised. This was because he was too young, so much so that he was the same age as many people's children, or even younger. "You're that cultivator." Tang Zheng nodded. "You're a cultivator, jackals of the same tribe as the demons. What qualifications do you have to sit in on this meeting?" "I think the National Security Bureau is becoming more and more outrageous." Tang Zheng frowned. "If you didn't invite me, I wouldn't have come." Su Yingtian also had an anxious expression. He repeatedly urged Tang Zheng to listen more and speak less, but Tang Zheng still couldn't hold back. These people were all old comrades, and many of them had the wrong idea of judging a hero based on age. They believed that those without hair on their mouths were not reliable. Therefore, naturally, many people didn't agree with Tang Zheng. "I invited him." A dignified voice sounded. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Everyone's gaze followed the voice. Bureau Chief. Many people's expressions changed. They didn't expect the bureau chief to invite him. This was too big of a deal. Originally, many people were prepared to bombard Tang Zheng, but they immediately swallowed their words back into their stomachs. They looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated expression. They thought to themselves, what did this brat do to deserve such respect from the bureau chief? Tang Zheng was originally full of anger, but seeing that the bureau chief helped him out of the situation, he nodded at him in acknowledgement. The bureau chief looked at him and said, Tang Zheng, you're a cultivator, so you know more about the situation of the demons. Tell everyone. Okay. Tang Zheng didn't decline. Didn't you guys not like to hear it? Now, you have to listen. Previously, someone said that the strength of cultivators was too great, and that it was just an exaggeration, right? His gaze swept over the person who said that. That person snorted and turned his head away unhappily. The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth hooked up and said, I want to say, you are completely wrong. The cultivator's strength introduced in the information in your hands is not exaggerated. In fact, there are many places that are too conservative. Cultivators are far more powerful than what they introduce. Impossible. Someone immediately exclaimed softly. Impossible, right? Then what you think will make you believe it? Tang Zheng shook his head secretly. Although these people had good intentions in general, their knowledge was too shallow, and they were stubborn and inflexible. He decided to teach these people a lesson. This was not for their own good, but for the sake of the thousands of soldiers' lives. Otherwise, Tang Zheng would feel uneasy. Seeing that the other party was unable to come up with a reason, Tang Zheng said to himself, as the saying goes, seeing is believing, and hearing is false. Today, I will show you what a cultivator's true strength is. Let's see if it is just flowery fists and impractical legs. Chapter 776. Seeing the sudden change in Tang Zheng's aura, the previously ordinary young man became as sharp as an unsheathed sword. Seeing that the bureau chief had no intention of objecting, Tang Zheng casually pointed his finger. His true chi fluctuated, and before many people could understand what was going on, Tang Zheng had already retracted his hand. There seemed to be no reaction at all. Many people muttered, "There's nothing at all?" He's deliberately mystifying. The person from before laughed loudly. "Huh, is this the strength of a cultivator? Bluffing to scare people." Before he finished speaking, his face turned pale, and he shouted in panic, "What's going on? Why can't I move?" As soon as he said that, many people also exclaimed, "I can't move either. What kind of witchcraft is this?" In this huge conference room, except for the bureau chief, Su Yingtian, and Xing Feng, everyone else had turned into puppets. All of them looked as if they had seen a ghost and were shouting and screaming. Anyone who realized that they couldn't control their body would feel an indescribable fear. "Tang Zheng, is this your doing? Someone come, quickly catch him," someone shouted. Hurried footsteps immediately sounded outside the door. With a creak, the door was pulled open by the guards. Because his all equal to the bureau chief frowned, waved his hand, and said, "Get out." The guards hurriedly retreated, leaving only those people staring at each other, unable to hide the fear in their eyes. This was just the simplest body-locking technique. With Tang Zheng's current cultivation, dealing with these ordinary people with just a thought, these people would immediately be locked in place. Of course, he didn't do that to the bureau chief. After all, he had to give him some face. As for Su Yingtian and Xing Feng, both of them were martial artists and weren't weak. They wouldn't be immobilized so easily. "Tang Zheng, you've already proven the power of a cultivator. Let them go." The bureau chief nodded at Tang Zheng. Of course, he knew the power of a cultivator, but he didn't stop him. He wanted to let these people experience it for themselves so that they wouldn't be ignorant. "All right," Tang Zheng replied. With a thought, he said, "You can move now." Sure enough, everyone discovered that they had regained their ability to move, and all of them turned pale with fright. This change far exceeded their imagination, and they truly felt the terror of a cultivator. Although it was just a small test, it was enough to see the strength of the Xiozha. The people who had refuted Tang Zheng earlier all quieted down and looked at the bureau chief at the same time. The bureau chief said without batting an eyelid, "Tang Zheng, what do you suggest? First, we need to figure out where they are going. As for intercepting them outside the country, I don't think that's realistic because cultivators who are strong enough don't need to rely on any tools at all. They can fly from the island nation to Huaxia." Flying through the air. Everyone was immediately attracted by these 4 words. They all found it hard to believe. "You're saying that the demons can fly across the sea like birds? We can't rule out that possibility." Tang Zheng nodded. Hiss. Many people gasped. Wasn't this the legendary means of the gods? But there will always be some people who can't fly through the air. The bureau chief added, "What measures do we have to deal with these people?" Tang Zheng said without hesitation, "Then we'll intercept them outside the country." This coincided with the bureau chief's thoughts. The bureau chief nodded. "Then we have to start collecting information on these people. We can't let the demon army set foot on Huaxia's land." Tang Zheng did not say a word, but he was not optimistic in his heart. The demons were everywhere. How could it be so easy to stop all of them in disguise? As for those demons who can fly through the air, the bureau chief threw another question, obviously wanting Tang Zheng to give him a satisfactory answer. Let the radar monitor them. Tang Zheng was at his wit's end. Humans were like birds. He didn't know if the radar could detect them. Then let the fighter jets intercept them? That's one way. Tang Zheng nodded. But we have to be careful. These people are very strong. Even the fighter jets might not be able to do anything to them. Since they're in the air, can't we use missiles to shoot them down? Also, why don't we attack the island nation while the demons are still in the island nation? Someone suggested. Attack the island nation? Yes, use missiles to bombard targets that the island nation can see. We can even use nuclear bombs. Decades ago, they invaded us. This time, we should treat the island nation well. These words were radical. This was equivalent to declaring war on the island nation. The consequences were unimaginable. It might even cause a world war. No one present had the guts or courage to take on this responsibility. As expected, before the others could speak, the bureau chief had already rejected it. There's no need to bring up such an unrealistic and absurd suggestion. Everyone immediately fell silent. They couldn't come up with any bloody suggestions anyway. The bureau chief turned and looked at Xingfeng. He asked, "Does the dragon group have any countermeasures?" Xingfeng quickly stood up and said respectfully, "Bureau chief, the dragon group will definitely go all out. A new batch of mechas can be sent to the sea to face the enemy." After saying that, he glanced at Tang Zheng from the corner of his eyes. In the past, many of the dragon group's mechas were directly or indirectly destroyed by Tang Zheng. This made Xingfeng grit his teeth in hatred. Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched. He had personally witnessed the strength of the mechas. The current strength of the mechas was probably on another level. This was the trump card of the dragon group. However, using the mechas to defend against the demons might be a good idea. Thus, Tang Zheng glanced at Xingfeng and didn't object. After hearing Xingfeng's words, the bureau chief nodded. If that's the case, not only the dragon group, but the other military departments must also send out their elites. Once they find traces of the enemy, they must intercept them with all their might. Yes, the others didn't dare to disagree. They all nodded. Also, the matter of the demons is of great importance. Remember not to spread this matter. It is even more impossible to let the public know about this in case it causes social unrest. No matter what, maintaining social stability has always been the most important thing for us. The bureau chief added. The meeting continued, but the topics were closely related to the framework and core of the discussion. Tang Zheng no longer interjected, his eyes lowered to his nose lowered to his heart, silently becoming a spectator. However, the wind didn't stop blowing. There were still many people secretly looking at Tang Zheng. It was as if they wanted to remember this face. Today, Tang Zheng's performance could be said to be amazing. He made these high-ranking officials recognize him. It was more convincing than just hearing a name or some rumors. Moreover, from the bureau chief's attitude towards Tang Zheng, many people could see that this kid's future was limitless. Many of the more intelligent people had already thought of winning over this rising star. After the meeting ended, everyone left one after another. However, Tang Zheng was left behind. Tang Zheng, I heard that Tian Chanzi has already gone to the island nation. Did you find anything? The bureau chief asked directly. He didn't ask in public just now because he didn't want others to know too much. I can't contact him. I don't know what news he has. Tang Zheng shook his head. If there is any news, share it with each other. This time, it's not just a matter of one person. It's a matter of the entire nation. It concerns millions of families. I know that you have some conflicts with the Dragon Group. I hope that if there is any cooperation this time, both of you can put aside your past grudges and work together sincerely. The bureau chief advised patiently. Tang Zheng looked at him suspiciously and asked, I have to work with the Dragon Group. The Dragon Group's mechas are very powerful. They're the most powerful equipment in our army. Of course, the mechas have to be used to intercept the demons. However, if you help from the side, it will be much easier. Therefore, if there is any news, I hope that you can work together sincerely with the Dragon Group. This decision made Tang Zheng very surprised. He liked to fight alone. Even if he wanted to work together, he had never thought of working with the Dragon Group. The two of them were like fire and water. I will tell Xing Feng that he will definitely not find trouble with you. You are a magnanimous person. Let's forget about the previous conflicts. Since he had already said this, Tang Zheng could not give him face. Moreover, Tang Zheng saw Su Yingtian continuously giving him looks. Obviously, he wanted him to agree. All right, Tang Zheng reluctantly agreed. I just thought of something. The Azure Dragon Hall is not weak. This force can be used to defend against the demons. He believed that the other party must know about the existence of the Azure Dragon Hall. Perhaps he had more insider information than him. Therefore, he purposely used the Azure Dragon Hall to attract attention. Or it could be said that he wanted to force the Azure Dragon Hall to reveal themselves. Hearing the 3 words, Azure Dragon Hall, the bureau chief's eyes flashed with a complicated expression. Tang Zheng looked at him suspiciously but didn't find anything strange. The Azure Dragon Hall is too mysterious. We also don't have accurate information. Therefore, it is not a good idea to use the people of the Azure Dragon Hall to defend against the demons. The bureau chief said calmly. Tang Zheng sighed faintly. He didn't think that the bureau chief would reject him so straightforwardly. However, since the Azure Dragon Hall, Wu Zhongli and Gong Gong were jackals of the same tribe, it meant that their attitude towards cultivators was ultimately not friendly. Seeing the return of the demons, wouldn't they have a countermeasure? With the return of the demons, the first to be affected would be the warriors. Naturally, these 3 mysterious organizations would be included. If we can find the people of the Azure Dragon Hall, that would be the best. Tang Zheng thought silently. However, the Azure Dragon Hall was too elusive. Where would he find their members? I know that you are a good, patriotic youth. This time, you have to put in more effort. The country will not forget anyone who has contributed. The bureau chief said solemnly. Tang Zheng smiled, but did not comment. He said his goodbyes and left with Su Yingtian, leaving the center of power. The bureau chief returned to the study room alone. He turned around and personally closed the door. Chapter 777. This masked man was the head of the Azure Dragon Hall, the Lord. The bureau chief was not surprised by the masked man standing in the room. He nodded slightly at him and walked to the window, standing side by side with the Lord. How did the meeting go? The Lord asked calmly. After the bureau chief gave a brief introduction, he added, Tang Zheng suggested for the Azure Dragon Hall to fight against the demons, but I rejected it in the end. The eyes behind the mask shone brightly, and he smiled strangely. Tang Zheng is really indulging in fantasy. Actually, I think what Tang Zheng said is not unreasonable. At this moment, the survival of the country is at stake. If the Azure Dragon Hall has a way, why not give it a try? You don't want to see this world really being occupied by the cultivators, right? The Lord frowned and asked suspiciously, You're all worrying for nothing. The demons have returned, but not all of them have. Island Nation is not rich in spiritual energy. Although the 100 Change Star Lord killed more people to make up for this lack, it didn't have much effect. Therefore, there are only about 100 demons that return this time, and they don't have the ability to overturn this world. The Lord said, as if victory was in his hands. Only 100? The bureau chief widened his eyes in surprise, and all the cells in his body seemed to be filled with joy. Really? Of course, when have I been wrong? The Lord was full of confidence. The bureau chief heaved a sigh of relief and said with lingering fear, "It's really full of twists and turns. It's like riding a roller coaster. You don't know how much pressure I've been under." With pressure comes motivation. Although there aren't many demons that returned, they still have power that cannot be underestimated. They will definitely spare no effort to find a way to let the other demons return. This is what we really need to be wary of. The bureau chief understood and said, "Prevent all the demons from returning." The High Lord nodded his head. "That's right. So your military is barely qualified for the current mission. Moreover, with Tang Zhang's help, you guys are like a tiger that has grown wings. You should be able to snipe these demons." The Azure Dragon Hall has always been at odds with the Cultivators. As a descendant of New Era, are you going to sit by and do nothing? The bureau chief was slightly dissatisfied. The Lord shook his head and smiled. "Of course not. The Azure Dragon Hall has more important things to do." "What is it?" "You don't need to know that." The High Lord didn't give him any face and directly said, "Although the military can deal with the rest of the demons, the ever-changing Star Sovereign is not an ordinary person. Is the Azure Dragon Palace going to sit by and do nothing?" This time, the Mountain River Blood Sacrifice Array did not really succeed. Then, next time, when the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign was more prepared, wouldn't that mean that the demon army would be able to return smoothly? What should we do then? The bureau chief did not give up and continued to ask aggressively. "Last time, you said that you had a way to deal with the 100 Change Star Sovereign. However, until now, you have not done anything. What exactly is your Azure Dragon Hall planning to do?" The Great Lord looked at the bureau chief with a burning gaze. The bureau chief was not afraid at all. He raised his head and looked into the Great Lord's eyes. "If you have something to say, just say it. You can't just scare me with your eyes." The Great Lord smiled faintly. "I'm not trying to scare you. It's just that the Azure Dragon Hall has its own rules. It's not up to others to tell us what to do. I don't want to tell you what to do, but what's the purpose of keeping the 100 Transformation Star Sovereign?" The bureau chief continued to ask. The Great Lord turned his head slightly, and a mysterious smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He thought to himself, "My 100-year plan is not something that you can guess. There's nothing else for me to do here. Goodbye." The Great Lord disappeared. As soon as he finished speaking, before the bureau chief could say anything to stop him, the Great Lord had already disappeared from his sight. The bureau chief's eyes kept changing. He punched the wall and said, deliberately mystifying and half-hearted, "The people of the Azure Dragon Hall are getting more and more unreasonable." Tang Zheng walked alone on the street, recalling what he had seen and heard during the meeting. Now, he could only wait for the official news. Once they found traces of the demons, they would definitely inform him. Tian Chanzi, where did you run off to? You're so mysterious." He sighed deeply and suddenly raised his head. Why does this place feel so familiar?" Only then did he realize that he had unknowingly come to a place not far from the Ye family. The Ye family's courtyard gate was already in sight. Although Ding Dang and I have broken up, the return of the demons is a matter of great importance. I should inform them, in case something unexpected happens. Tang Zheng walked to the Ye family gate. When the guard saw him, he couldn't help but take a few steps back. Last time, when he made a scene at the Ye family, many people suffered at his hands. "Please inform Yi Tianlei or Feng Xinyang that I have something to discuss with them." Tang Zheng didn't force his way in and said politely. When the guard saw that he did not intend to barge in recklessly, he heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly turned around to report. A moment later, Yi Tianlei walked out with large strides. "Tang Zheng, why are you here?" Yi Tianlei's attitude was much better than last time. During this time, his dissatisfaction with Tang Zheng had gradually dissipated. "Tang Zheng, you and Ding Dang have already broken up. There's no need to continue entangling with each other. Tang Zhang's lips curled into a bitter smile. He shook his head and said, I didn't come for that. I came to tell you something. I'll leave once I'm done. Hearing this, Yi Tianlei felt very regretful. In fact, he was very satisfied with Tang Zheng in all aspects. But the heavens made fools of people. In the end, the two young people didn't walk together. Say it. If there's anything you want to tell Ding Dang, I can also pass it on for you. There's no need. Tang Zheng shook his head. Since he Ding Dang didn't want to be together, then he had nothing to say. Oh, I was wondering who came. With such great face, you actually made Uncle Yi personally come to receive you. So it's you. An ear-piercing voice came from the gatehouse. A few people walked out confidently. Enemies on a narrow road. The person who came was actually Song Yu. Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched. Why was Song Yu at the Ye family? Tang Zheng, it's important for people to know their own limits. If you blindly pester endlessly and overestimate yourself, you'll be the one losing face in the end. Song Yu said sarcastically. Tang Zheng stared at Song Yu. He never realized that Song Yu's face was so annoying. When he first met Song Yu at Ordinary Balance's courtyard, he was a refined and courteous young master who gave people a good impression. Later on, that impression slowly slipped. Now, when Tang Zheng saw this face, he had the urge to beat someone up. In fact, Song Yu looked like a modest gentleman, but he had two faces. Back then, he appreciated Tang Zheng, so he was naturally refined and courteous. Now that Tang Zheng had far surpassed him, his modest and gentlemanly demeanor was naturally thrown out of the window. It seemed that only by using words to provoke Tang Zheng would he be able to balance out a lot. Was it shallow? Indeed shallow. Who said that the children of large families weren't shallow? They would definitely be gentle, refined, generous, and selfless. It was just that the people of large families were better at hiding and doing superficial work. But in front of Tang Zheng, Song Yu really couldn't pretend. Seeing Song Yu's unbridled sarcasm, Tang Zheng said coldly, Song Yu, what are you doing here at the Ye family? Haha, who are you? What qualifications do you have to ask about my business? Song Yu said disdainfully, lightly raising his eyebrows. But seeing that you asked so sincerely, I'll tell you. I'm here to propose to Ding Dang. Propose? Tang Zheng was so angry that his temples were throbbing. He looked at Yi Tianlei. Uncle Yi, is this true? It's a long story. Tang Zheng, don't be so agitated. Yi Tianlei advised. Song Yu seemed to want to make Tang Zheng agitated and continued to provoke. Tang Zheng, you're so agitated. Are you very happy? I appreciate your kind intentions. Don't worry, when Ding Dang and I get married, I'll send you an invitation. Tang Zheng snorted and said directly to Yi Tianlei, Uncle Yi, you can clearly see what kind of person Song Yu is. You absolutely can't push Ding Dang into the fire pit. Tang Zheng, how can you say that? Who's the fire pit? You're pestering endlessly. Be careful that I don't hold back. Song Yu's expression turned cold as she berated. Tang Zheng's gaze turned cold as he said, I'm the one who's going to be impolite to you. I told you to stay away from Ding Dang. If you don't listen, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Tang Zheng still had Yi Ding Dang in his heart. Although he respected Yi Ding Dong's choice, when he heard the explosive news of the marriage proposal, his anger couldn't help but soar. Song Yu knew very well that she wasn't Tang Zheng's opponent. She moved slightly and hid behind Yi Tianlei, shouting, You only know how to use your hands. Such a violent person is a disgrace to culture. Ding Dang knowing you is the biggest mistake in his life. Uncle Yi, get out of the way. I want to teach this bred a lesson. Tang Zheng rubbed his fists and said angrily. This was the Ye family's gate. Yi Tianlei naturally couldn't turn a blind eye. He watched Tang Zheng attack Song Yu and hurriedly advised, Tang Zheng, calm down. Uncle Yi, how do you want me to calm down? Song Yu actually shamelessly came to propose to Ding Dang. If I don't beat him until half his body is paralyzed, then I swear I will not rest. Tang Zheng said aggressively. Song Yu wasn't afraid at all and provoked. What you say sounds better than singing. This is the Ye family. How can you do whatever you want? Where will the Ye family put their face? Song Yu wasn't afraid and was trying to sow discord. He knew that Yi Tianlei wouldn't turn a blind eye to it. Perhaps he wanted to provoke Tang Zheng's anger and make the situation go out of control. Although Tang Zheng guessed some of the other party's thoughts, he had to get involved in today's matter. Even if it was the other party's trick, he had to step in and ruin the so-called marriage proposal. Seeing Tang Zheng's anger, Yi Tianlei continued to persuade. Tang Zheng, listen to me. It's useless for you to stir up this matter. Is it? Then who is in charge of this matter? Uncle Yi, you are Ding Dong's father. Could it be that you will just watch as your daughter marries him? Tang Zheng questioned. Yi Tianlei glanced back from the corner of his eyes and didn't answer. Of course, he didn't want to marry his daughter to Song Yu. Chapter 778. Tang Zheng directly walked towards the door. Song Yu immediately shouted in a sarcastic tone. Yo, Tang Zheng, what do you think the Yef family is? You just barged in like that. If this were to spread, where would the Yef family's reputation be? It was obvious that Song Yu was trying to drive a wedge between them again. Although Yi Tianlei knew this, he had no choice but to comply with Song Yu's wishes. He stopped Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng, don't be impatient. If you barge in like this, the old man will definitely go crazy. Things will become even more difficult to handle. Tang Zheng sneered. Are you saying that I should wait for the dust to settle? Then the daylily will be too late. Uncle Yi, move aside. I'm going to see Yi Xuanji, not do anything else. Tang Zheng, don't make it difficult for me. Yi Tianlei said awkwardly. Tang Zheng looked at him deeply and nodded. Okay, I won't make it difficult for you. That's right, let's talk things out. Yi Tianlei let out a sigh of relief. Suddenly, a figure flashed in front of him. Tang Zheng actually passed by him and rushed into the door. Yi Tianlei was shocked. Tang Zheng's speed was too fast, causing him to be unable to guard against it. Tang Zheng, don't go in, stop. Seeing Tang Zheng rush in like lightning, Yi Tianlei hurriedly shouted to stop him. However, Tang Zheng turned a deaf ear to him. Song Yu's eyes could not hide the shock and horror in them, especially when Tang Zheng passed by Yi Tianlei. He was as fast as lightning, and he did not see it clearly. There was not even a trace of an afterimage. How did Tang Zheng's cultivation improve so much? Song Yu's expression couldn't help but become a little ugly. Seeing Yi Tianlei chase after him, he also quickly followed. Tang Zheng was familiar with the place and arrived at the reception hall in the blink of an eye. Some people were talking loudly and enthusiastically. When Tang Zheng suddenly appeared at the entrance, he immediately received everyone's gazes. Many gazes swept over, and many people couldn't help but frown. Yi Xuanji's eyelids twitched as he stared at Tang Zheng with a complicated expression. He unhappily said, Tang Zheng, why did you barge in? Tang Zheng turned a deaf ear to her. His eyes were firmly fixed on Yi Dingdang as he strode over and asked, Song Yu came to propose? Yi Dingdang looked at him expressionlessly and said, What does this have to do with you? This has nothing to do with me, but I won't just watch you fall into a pit of fire. Tang Zheng said unyieldingly. Yi Dingdang's heart thumped as if it was fiercely poked. She was a little touched, but also a little heartbroken. In fact, this period of time was also very torturous for her. She liked Tang Zheng, there was no doubt about it. Breaking up with Tang Zheng would mean completely severing ties with him. Cutting him out of her life seemed easy, but when she really did it, she realized how painful her heart was. But there was no turning back. With her unyielding personality, of course she couldn't redeem herself, although she would occasionally have such thoughts. At this moment, seeing Tang Zheng's arrival, although she looked calm on the surface, her heart was already in turmoil. When Feng Xinyang saw Tang Zheng, her eyes were filled with passion. Just as she was about to greet him, she heard Yi Xuanji loudly say, Tang Zheng, this is the Yef family, not a place for you to behave atrociously. Being ignored by Tang Zheng in front of everyone, Yi Xuanji's anger had already risen. Tang Zheng suddenly turned around and stared at Yi Xuanji from a distance. He found that there was also an extraordinary old man sitting next to him. This person was definitely not an ordinary person. He was very powerful, probably also a master. Tang Zheng immediately guessed the other party's identity. The head of the Song family, Song Jianan. It seemed that Song Yu's proposal this time was very grand. She even invited Song Jia Nan to be a witness. Song Yu had put a lot of thought into it. But in Tang Zhang's eyes, the head of the family was bullshit. Even if it was the emperor, he would still ruin this marriage, just like he did before. A person who doesn't even care about his own granddaughter's happiness has no right to lecture me, Tang Zhang said sarcastically. Yi Xuanji's old face was as red as a monkey's, but he said angrily, Tang Zhang, I've always tolerated you because you're a junior, so I didn't argue with you. But there's a limit to everything. If you continue to be stubborn and pester endlessly, I'll let you know how powerful the Yef family is. Tang Zhang sneered. The Yef family is very powerful. I've finally seen it for myself. They can even sacrifice their own family's happiness for the rest of their lives. That's really powerful. Nonsense. Yi Xuanji's thoughts were seen through, and he became even more angry. This time, Song Yu invited Song Jia Nan to propose marriage. If it were before, Yi Xin would have had the chance to refuse. But now, the situation was pressing. The rise of the Song family made him feel a lot of pressure. But the Yef family was isolated and helpless. They were all alone. If Yi Xuanji refused again this time, and the first engagement was ruined, the Yef family would become a thorn in the side of the Song family. The Song family's first target would not be the Yin family, but the Yef family. To deal with the Yef family now, the Song family's strength was enough. By then, the Yef family would be in danger. Yi Xuanji was old and shrewd, and he easily saw through this. So this time, even though he knew that the Song family came to propose marriage, he did not reject them immediately. If Tang Zhang did not come to mess things up, perhaps Yi Xuanji would have agreed in the end. After all, this way, the Yef family could avoid a crisis. Although he sacrificed Yi Dingdong's happiness, the children of big families were mostly married to each other. How could there be so much freedom in love? On the contrary, it was more common for ordinary people to have freedom in love. This was the duty that should be fulfilled while enjoying all kinds of wealth and treatment. Yi Xuanji thought that this was a matter of course. As for Yi Dingdong's own thoughts, Yi Xuanji chose to ignore them. Song Jianan had been silently observing Tang Zhang. He was also very interested in this rising star, and thought that it was really a miracle. But miracles often did not last long, especially such a young and energetic person. There would be a day when he would fall. Moreover, Tang Zhang caused trouble everywhere. Not only was he like fire and water with the Dragon Group, he even recently heard that he had a conflict with the Rockefeller family. This made Song Jianan even more disregard for him. In fact, Song Jianan still felt a little regretful, because he originally wanted to build a connection with the Rockefeller family. So he sent Song Yu to contact the young Lord Louis, and even provided a lot of convenience for the other party. Louis was able to gather tens of thousands of people in a short period of time, naturally without Song Yu's cooperation. However, Song Yu did not know about the Mountain River blood sacrifice array at all. He thought that it was just to catch some unimportant people, not worth mentioning, and even forgot about it. The matter of Sky Mountain was kept secret very well. Even Song Yu did not know that Louis had already died in the hands of Tang Zhang. Otherwise, he would not have acted so recklessly. Song Jianan was like an old fox, smiling at Tang Zhang, and said, Xuanji, this young man is really hot-tempered. He doesn't put anyone in his eyes at all, and he doesn't put the Yef family in his eyes at all. Tang Zhang raised his thick eyebrows. This old thing and Song Yu were indeed family. Their ability to sow discord was the same. Hearing this, Yi Xuanji slammed the chair and was about to stand up. Just at this time, Yi Tianlei rushed in and hurriedly pulled Tang Zhang, saying, Tang Zhang, let's go out first. If there's anything, we can talk about it in private. Yi Tianlei was afraid that the old man would attack in anger, and if that happened, Tang Zhang would be at a disadvantage. In his impression, although Tang Zhang's strength was getting stronger and stronger, but after all, the older the ginger, the spicier the ginger, so he subconsciously thought that Tang Zhang was not the old man's opponent. Tang Zhang skillfully broke free from Yi Tianlei and said sincerely, Uncle Yi, some things can be compromised, but some things must be insisted on. You don't want Ding Dang to live in pain and regret for the rest of her life, right? Yi Tianlei's face was conflicted. As a father, he naturally wanted his daughter to be happy. Uncle Yi, it's hard for you to do this, so let me do it. Ding Dang, don't worry. I will definitely not let their scheme succeed. Tang Zheng solemnly promised Yi Ding Dang. Yi Ding Dang's heart was moved. She did not have a good impression of Song Yu. Last time at school, in order to anger Tang Zheng, she sat in Song Yu's car and got off as soon as they left the school gate. She did not want to have too much contact with Song Yu, but Song Yu was determined. This time, she even brought up Song Jia Nan to propose marriage. Although it was not finalized, Yi Ding Dang could already see that Yi Xuanji was moved. Yi Ding Dang was very disappointed. The so-called family was not worth mentioning in the face of benefits. Just now, she was even thinking about how Tang Zheng would react when he found out about this. She did not think that Tang Zheng would magically appear from the sky as if he had heard her thoughts. Yi Ding Dang naturally did not want to marry Song Yu. Even if Yi Xuanji agreed, she would not take it seriously. So when everyone was talking about it, she did not say a word, because she had already made up her mind to not agree. Whether others agreed or not, it was not worth mentioning to her. As for whether it would harm the Ye family's interests, Yi Ding Dang did not have much feelings for the Ye family. Naturally, she would not care. She was like an indifferent spectator watching this group of people play out this funny scene. Others did not know what Yi Ding Dang was thinking. They only saw Tang Zheng's firm attitude. Yi Xuanji finally stood up from the chair. He glared at Tang Zheng and walked step by step towards him. The earth-shattering aura made the living room seem as if it had turned into a vast ocean, with stormy waves crashing towards Tang Zheng. Father, there's no need to do this, Yi Tianlei advised. Go away. Yi Xuanji waved his hand. Yi Tianlei staggered and retreated, leaving only Tang Zheng to face Yi Xuanji alone. Song Yu also chased after them and coincidentally saw this scene. Her eyebrows were raised in joy, as this was a perfect situation. Tang Zheng did not know the difference between life and death and provoked Yi Xuanji. Even if he did not die this time, he would at least lose a layer of skin. Of course, it would be best if Tang Zheng died in the Ye family's hands. This way, the Song family would be able to distance themselves from him. Even if someone wanted to take revenge, they would look for the Ye family. This way, the Ye family would be more firmly attached to the Song family. His chances would be greater. Tang Zheng, you asked for it. This time you asked for it, but in the end, you helped me. Ha! Song Yu was secretly happy. Tang Zheng, I'll say it again. Get out of the Ye family immediately. Otherwise, I won't be polite. Yi Xuanji gave his last ultimatum. Tang Zheng did not move at all. He looked at Yi Xuanji indifferently. He did not take him seriously at all. Chapter 779. Yi Xuanji was angered to the point of blowing on his beard and glaring at Tang Zheng. His eyes flashed with an ominous glint as his 5 fingers formed into claws. With a roar, he clawed at Tang Zheng's shoulder. He was ready to teach Tang Zheng a lesson. After all, he didn't have a good relationship with Tang Zheng. However, he didn't want to kill Tang Zheng. After all, Tang Zheng had the mysterious Tian Chanzi behind him. If he offended Tian Chanzi, he would lose more than he could gain. Tang Zheng moved his feet slightly and moved his body slightly. Yi Xuanji's 5 fingers actually brushed past Tang Zheng's clothes and didn't hurt him at all. Yi Xuanji's heart skipped a beat. Tang Zheng's movement was too casual and smooth. He instantly disintegrated his attack. However, Yi Xuanji was a veteran after all. His other hand was like a long whip, grabbing at Tang Zheng's shoulder. Tang Zheng didn't dodge this time. Instead, he moved like lightning and grabbed Yi Xuanji's wrist. Up! Tang Zheng let out a low roar, and Yi Xuanji discovered that his feet had left the ground. Shit! Yi Xuanji cried out. He tried to land on the ground, but he found that an irresistible force lifted him up and sent him flying. Bang! Yi Xian and Yi Xuanji landed far away. They staggered back 3 steps before stabilizing their bodies. The ground under their feet was already in a mess. Yi Xuanji was still in shock. He looked at his hands and then at Tang Zhong. He couldn't understand how he lost his hand so carelessly. Everyone's expression changed. None of them were mediocre. They immediately judged that Tang Zheng's failure wasn't a coincidence. It was his true strength. In fact, they only needed to think a little to understand that in front of a master like Yi Xuanji, it was impossible for a coincidence to happen. With his strength and vision, he could kill any coincidence in the cradle. Song Jianan looked at Tang Zheng with a serious expression. He recalled the scene just now and couldn't help but secretly praise him. Whether it was the strength or the timing, they were all perfect. Not only did this require one's own strength as a foundation, but it also required the support of one's battle experience. It was rare to see someone at such a young age reach such a realm. No wonder you suffered so much at the hands of the other party. Indeed, it's not unjust. However, for the sake of the great cause of the Song family in the future, we should get rid of this nail. The killing intent in Song Jianan's heart gradually accumulated. Tang Zheng looked at Yi Xuanji indifferently and said, "Show me what you've got. Since you can't beat me, then I'll take care of this matter." Yi Xuanji was only at the first level of the Supreme Power Realm and had barely touched the threshold of the second level of the Supreme Power Realm. Compared to Tang Zheng, who had a second level of the Golden Core Realm, it seemed that there was only one level difference. But in fact, there was a huge gap between them. Tang Zheng was confident that no matter what, Yi Xuanji was no match for him. Yi Xuanji's expression kept changing. With so many people watching, if he lost again, it would really be a disgrace. He took a deep breath and said, "Tang Zheng, don't be arrogant." After that, his hands turned into claws, one in front and one behind. The air seemed to be torn apart, leaving behind after-images of claw marks. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng stood still. When the other party was in front of him, he threw out both fists and moved forward together, like two angry dragons coming out of the sea. Bang! Bang! The fists hit the claws. The claws tried to catch the fists, but they found that the huge force directly shook them away. Tang Zheng moved his legs. With a small step, he was already in front of Yi Xuanji. The attack of his fists was not reduced, and they were aimed at Yi Xuanji's chest. Yi Xuanji retreated in a hurry and put his hands forward, trying to block the two huge fists. However, he heard a crisp sound, and a sharp pain came from his wrist. Tang Zheng's fist directly broke his wrist. The fist slipped out of his arm and hit his chest. Bang! With a thunder-like explosion, Yi Xuanji was sent flying to the door. The door creaked as if it was going to fall down. Tang Zheng's series of attacks did not have any tricks. It was all strength. It was dazzling and as fast as lightning. It was a real test of one's skills. Many people were already dumbfounded. If they were shocked at the beginning, then now they were frightened. Each and every one of them looked at Tang Zheng with eyes full of disbelief and astonishment. "Father!" Yi Tianlei hurriedly helped Yi Xuanji up, patted the dust on his body, and asked with concern, "Father, how are you?" Yi Xuanji's face was ashen. It was not that he was heavily injured. Only the fracture of his wrist was a little uncomfortable, but this pain was nothing to him. He was more shocked. Tang Zheng was stronger than him, and not just a little bit stronger. He had a feeling that if Tang Zheng had not shown mercy, the fist that hit his chest would have directly shattered his ribs and even his heart. It was precisely because he knew all of this that all sorts of feelings welled up in his heart, and he was practically unable to accept such a cruel reality. He had been practicing for a lifetime and finally broke through to the first level of the Supreme Power Realm. In the eyes of others, it was already rare and commendable. However, Tang Zheng surpassed him in just over a year. What did this mean? It was like Yi Xuanji's lifetime of hard work was a joke compared to Tang Zheng, a big joke. Yi Xuanji's face was red for a while, then pale for a while, and then gloomy for a while. In short, his heart was broken. Tang Zheng no longer paid attention to Yi Xuanji. Instead, he walked to Yi Dingdang and said straightforwardly, "Your happiness is up to you. No one can tell you what to do. This is the only thing I can do for you." These words were clean and neat, but also revealed endless helplessness and pain. because he could not save this relationship. Yi Ding-dong's eyes rippled, and a trace of dense qi rose from the depths of her eyes. She bit her lips and could not say a word. Her mood was fluctuating too violently. It was not because of Tang Zhang's amazing cultivation, but because of these words, because of Tang Zhang's heart. There was no doubt that Tang Zhang still liked her. She clearly felt this, and she also liked him. However, the hurdle in her heart was like the world's first mountain, which she could not cross at all. Feng Xinyang looked at Tang Zhang with shining eyes. The more she looked at him, the more she liked him. He was so handsome. She sighed endlessly. Why couldn't such a handsome man be her son-in-law? That would be a huge loss. However, her daughter's happiness was up to her. Feng Xinyang did not intend to interfere. Tang Zhang looked deeply at Yi Dingdang. He did not expect her to respond. Just looking at her like this, he felt that what he did was enough. Suddenly, Yi Dingdong's pupils shrank, as if she had seen something. She shouted, "Careful!" Tang Zhang's heart trembled. He hurriedly turned around and threw a punch. Bang! Tang Zhang flew out and crashed into the wall, creating a large hole. Immediately, his eyes lit up. He stared at the enemy who was charging at him like lightning, Song Jianan. He actually launched a sneak attack. Song Jianan was completely helpless. He originally thought that Yi Xuanji could deal with Tang Zhang, or even kill him. Later, he realized how ruthless and cruel reality was. It did not go according to his expectations at all. Tang Zhang's strength had exceeded everyone's expectations. Yi Xuanji's defeat was without suspense, and it was a clean defeat. Even though Yi Xuanji still had the strength to fight, it was clear that his momentum had been completely destroyed by the 2 consecutive attacks. If Song Jianan still did not make a move, then the marriage proposal would really be ruined. Killing Tang Zhang would be even more difficult. Thus, he chose the safer method of a sneak attack. He even concealed his aura and launched his attack at lightning speed. Who would have thought that at the crucial moment, Yi Dingdong's warning would cause him to fall short of success? Song Jianan had the intention of killing Tang Zhang in one strike, but in the end, he only sent Tang Zhang flying. He did not give up, and like a dragon, he followed Tang Zhang like a shadow, arriving in front of Tang Zhang. Tang Zhang angrily roared, his voice shaking the teacups in the hall to the point that they all shattered. Then he pushed his hands forward, and the war soul sword appeared in his hands out of thin air, fiercely chopping down. Song Jianan saw the battle soul that appeared out of nowhere. His face showed a trace of strangeness. He already knew a lot about the divine abilities of cultivators. Seeing it with his own eyes was still amazing. However, he did not retreat. He extended his palm forward and patted the sword. Then, like a water snake, that pair of large hands actually wrapped around Tang Zhang's arm. "Shake!" Song Jianan roared. His arm exerted strength. It was as if steel needles were piercing into Tang Zhang's arm. The heart-wrenching pain caused Tang Zhang's arm to go numb. Battle Soul actually fell from his hand to the ground. Tang Zhang was extremely shocked, as no one had ever shaken the War Soul sword out of his hands, and Song Jianan was the only one. Immediately, Tang Zhang understood that the other party's cultivation was much higher than Yi Xuanji's. This was a difficult character to deal with. Song Jianan's cultivation was indeed higher than Tang Zhang's. He had already reached the master level several years ago. In these few years, he had just broken through to the 4th level of the master level. He was 2 levels higher than Tang Zhang's cultivation. Looking at the painful expression on Tang Zhang's face, Song Jianan said proudly, "Now you've tasted the taste of my 1,000 needles bone-breaking hand. This is only the beginning. Next is the real show." 1,000 needles bone-breaking hand. Tang Zhang's eyelids twitched. The pain just now was indeed like thousands of steel needles piercing into his skin. It lived up to its name. Since there was also the word bone-breaking, then the next step was definitely to break his bones. He did not guess wrong. This 1,000 needles bone-breaking hand was a ruthless method. When facing the enemy, Song Jianan's arm was soft, as if it had no bones. It was like a snake wrapping around the opponent. Then his inner strength burst out. It was like thousands of steel needles piercing out of his skin, piercing into the opponent's skin and even into the bones. The next step was an even more tragic broken bone. The true chi that pierced into the bones would explode. A series of crackling sounds could be heard, like the sound of firecrackers. It could cause the muscles and bones of a person to explode in an instant, turning them into a pile of mud. Break! Song Jia then roared again, tightly grabbing Tang Zheng. Chapter 780. Tang Zheng was in so much pain that he wanted to die, but he still clenched his teeth and endured it. He flipped his palm and grabbed Song Jianan's arm and fiercely pushed his chi back. Pung! Like a spring, Tang Zheng used this force to shake himself out of Song Jianan's grasp. Huh? Song Jianan was a little surprised. He was sure of victory, but he was still able to escape. He really did have some skills. Want to run? Stop right there. Song Jianan roared and chased after him like a maggot. Yi Dingdong's heart couldn't help but jump to her throat. She subconsciously grabbed Feng Xinyang's hand, and her palm was covered in cold sweat. Feng Xinyang sighed. What was the point of this? He cared so much, but pretended to be indifferent. Of course, with Feng Xinyang's temper, how could she just stand by and watch Song Jianan bully the weak? She stood up and shouted, Song Jianan, what you're doing is too despicable. You're bullying the weak, and you even used a sneak attack. What kind of man are you? Feng Xinyang's words made Song Jianan's expression change. He coldly snorted and said, Women really do have long hair and short eyes. I'm helping your Ye family, and you're biting the hand that feeds you? Little handsome brother, you've helped the Ye family, and you've helped me, Feng Xinyang. And since you're doing this, I can't just stand by and watch. She could sit by and watch Tang Zheng and Yi Dingdang break up, but she couldn't just stand by and watch Tang Zheng get bullied like this. That wasn't her style. Therefore, seeing injustice on the road, Feng Xinyang roared and rushed towards Song Jianan, shouting, Stop! With her cultivation, facing Song Jianan was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. But so what? She just couldn't stand Song Jianan. Yi Tianlei had already opened his mouth wide in disbelief. Yi Xuanji's face became even more gloomy as he shouted to stop her. Feng Xinyang, stop right there. Feng Xinyang turned a deaf ear to him and directly grabbed at Song Jianan's back. Song Jianan turned his hand and hit back. Bang! Feng Xinyang was like a kite with a broken string. She flew backward and crashed into several pieces of furniture before stopping. Blood was flowing out from the corner of her mouth. Seeing this, Yi Dingdang was enraged, and all the wolves in him lost their vigor. He shouted, You dare to hurt her, I'll fight you to the death. Shua! He raised his clear wind sword and thrust it forward as fast as lightning. The clear wind sword was as light as a feather. It was a true treasure sword. When paired with the wind-chasing sword art, it was truly wondrous. Song Jianan didn't put Yi Dingdang in his eyes at all. He didn't even turn his head as he tried to force Yi Dingdang back with a palm strike. However, his palm missed. With a flash of sword light, the Qing Feng sword pierced through his palm. Blood splattered everywhere. Song Jianan gave a pitiful cry as he forced back Tang Zheng. He suddenly turned around and stared at his palm. He saw that his palm had been pierced through by the clear wind sword and blood was dripping down. You actually injured me. He gritted his teeth, and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Ever since he became famous, he had never been in such a sorry state. His palm had been pierced by a little girl who was still wet behind the ears. This was a great humiliation. However, he was also shocked in his heart, other than the fact that he had underestimated his opponent. The most important reason was that Yi Dingdong's sword art was too exquisite. It caught him off guard. Of course, if he had been more careful, even if there were two Yi Dingdang, they wouldn't have been able to hurt him. All of this was a coincidence. But an injury was an injury. With so many pairs of eyes watching, there was no way to argue. The others were also stunned as they looked at the clear wind sword in Yi Dingdong's hand that was still dripping with blood. Suddenly, Yi Tianlei shouted, Dingdang, be careful. He threw himself at his daughter without a care for his own safety. This was because he had already seen the strong killing intent in Song Jianan's eyes. Even if Yi Dingdang was a member of the Ye family, Song Jianan would definitely kill her to protect his own face. He was not wrong. Song Jianan really did make a move. Song Jianan's large hand reached out to grab Yi Dingdang. With Yi Dingdong's cultivation, as long as she fell into his hands, it would be hard for her to escape. Yi Dingdang panicked, and the clear wind sword turned into a blur as it quickly pierced toward Song Jianan. However, Song Jianan had already seen the power of the clear wind sword and had already thought of a way to avoid it. He easily dodged the sword, and his large hand reached towards Yi Dingdong's head. "Don't!" Yi Tianlei rushed over, and his large fist carried the sound of wind and thunder as it flew towards Song Jianan. Pung! Yi Tianlei flew out and spat out a mouthful of blood in midair. Song Jianan's attack was slightly blocked, and his hand fiercely descended. Yi Dingdang could not dodge and was almost in despair because she could clearly feel the pressure and aura coming from above her head. "Go to hell!" Suddenly, a shout came from behind Song Jianan. It was Tang Zheng's attack. Song Jianan had been on guard against Tang Zheng. When he heard the sound, his other hand pushed backwards. Pung! The two palms fiercely hit each other. However, Song Jianan did not feel that Tang Zheng was sent flying. Instead, he stuck to his palm like glue. "What's going on?" He felt that something was strange and felt a strong wind behind him. He had no choice but to give up on Yi Dingdang and turn around to face Tang Zheng. Pung! Another palm, and the other two palms also stuck together. For eyes met, and Song Jianan felt a bit strange at his heart. Coincidentally, he saw the strange look in Tang Zheng's eyes, and his heart couldn't help but gedong. The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth curled up and said, "Song Jianan, taste this." As his voice fell, Tang Zheng activated the swallowing the sky technique. Whoosh! A trace of mysterious power was born from his palm. A huge suction force was immediately produced. It was like a huge black hole, swallowing Song Jianan's power. "Ah!" Song Jianan cried out in shock. "Kid, what are you doing?" Tang Zheng laughed and said, "What do you think?" Of course, he was using the swallowing the sky technique to absorb Song Jianan's power. This was the first time he used this function of the swallowing the sky technique in actual combat. When he felt this surging power coming from his palm, he felt that everything was so wonderful. The swallowing the sky technique is indeed extraordinary. "Humph, Song Jianan, you old man. Don't think that just because your cultivation is high, I can't deal with you." Tang Zheng was secretly pleased. "Let me go," Song Jianan roared with a heart-wrenching voice. His power flowed out of his body like a flood. How could he panic? This was something he had never heard of or seen before. It actually made him feel a sense of dread. His power was everything to him. If he lost his power, then he was worthless. The Song family would also be annihilated in an instant. The others did not know what was going on. They only looked at the two people's palms. There was no shocking aura, nor was there a dazzling fight. It was so simple and calm. However, it made Song Jianan feel as if his liver and guts were about to burst. Yi Xuanji's expression was complicated. He could not hide the horror in his eyes. Although he had lost to Tang Zheng, he did not expect that Tang Zheng would have such a strange skill that made Song Jianan so scared and flustered. Song Yu's face had already turned from red from excitement to deathly pale. The matter of victory that was within his grasp had actually become turbulent again, which was something he had never expected. Yi Dingdong's eyes were filled with splendor as she stared straight at Tang Zheng. The corner of her mouth couldn't help but reveal a smile. This was the big hero she liked. No matter how strong the other party was, she dared to challenge them and was good at creating miracles. Everything in front of her was a miracle. Tang Zheng crazily operated the swallowing the sky technique, and his power quickly flowed into Song Jianan's body. Song Jianan's face was already pale. He finally understood the danger he was facing. Tang Zheng was absorbing his power. Although he did not know what method he used, he succeeded. Suddenly, Song Jianan took a deep breath and his eyes almost popped out. This was because he felt that his cultivation had dropped by a level from the 4th level of the Supreme Power Realm to the 3rd level of the Supreme Power Realm. The 4th level of the Supreme Power Realm was the accumulation of his hard work. He had just broken through recently, but he was demoted just like that. All his hard work was in vain. This kind of feeling was really unpleasant. What made him even more fearful was that this was not the end. If this continued, he dared to conclude that his cultivation would be reduced to nothing. What are you doing? Hurry up and help me. Song Jianan shouted at the top of his lungs. Song Yu seemed to have woken up from a dream. A fierce look flashed in her eyes, and she rushed over. Tang Zheng braced himself and prepared to deal with Song Yu's attack. Unexpectedly, Song Yu did not attack him at all. Instead, she swept past him and attacked Yi Dingdang. Yi Dingdang thrust her sword forward. The tip of her sword was extremely sharp, but it did not force Song Yu back. He was like an incomparably ferocious lion, and in his hand, a cold glint of light appeared as he clashed with Qing Feng's sword. Yi Dingdang knew Song Yu very well. Seeing him so fierce, she could not help but be shocked. How did you become so powerful? In the past, Song Yu needed others to protect him. But now, with the strength he had shown, he definitely did not need ordinary people to protect him. His strength was far beyond other people's expectations. Song Yu sneered proudly. The long sword in her hand quickly attacked Yi Dingdang, and she said, "It's too late for you to realize it now." Although he did not want to destroy the flower, the situation had already developed beyond his control. He could no longer hide. Although Yi Dingdang had Qing Feng's sword and chasing wind sword technique, Song Yu was not weak either. The long sword in her hand danced in an airtight manner. Her power was definitely not weak. Her cultivation was not weaker than Yi Dingdang, especially her sword technique. It was very powerful and had extraordinary power. What sword technique is that? Yi Dingdang cried out in surprise. Song Yu coldly snorted and said, "You finally know how powerful I am. You dare to gang up and attack my grandfather. Don't think you will have an easy time." Shwa shwa shwa. Sword light filled the sky. Yi Dingdang was actually enveloped by the sword light. She was in danger. Seeing this, Tang Zheng impatiently shouted, "Song Yu, you hid your strength so deeply." Although he knew that Song Yu's cultivation was not weak, he did not expect her to be so powerful. She was even able to hide from his eyes. This was definitely not an ordinary matter. He had to admit that he had underestimated Song Yu. Chapter 781. The speed at which Tang Zheng absorbed the power was very fast. Song Jianan's cultivation dropped by another level, to the second level of the supreme power realm. His face had already turned pale. This kind of blow almost made him collapse. He couldn't help but roar, "Tang Zheng, what kind of demonic technique are you using? How can you absorb my power?" The others only saw that the two of them were in a stalemate, but they didn't know that Tang Zheng was absorbing Song Jianan's power. When they heard these words, they were all shocked. Tang Zheng felt that the surging power in his meridians was gathering in his dantian. It was completely absorbed by the golden core, and then it was continuously converted into genuine qi. He felt that his cultivation was soaring rapidly. Suddenly, a terrifying light burst out from his eyes, which was breathtaking. Third level of the golden core. Tang Zheng exclaimed secretly. This was really a rocket-like speed. He had actually improved his cultivation so easily. This sky-swallowing technique was indeed extraordinary. It could absorb the enemy's power and immediately convert it into his own cultivation. No wonder some people would be immersed in this feeling and blindly use the sky-swallowing technique to improve their cultivation, forgetting to cultivate hard, because this was really too tempting. Even he couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement. Song Jianan also noticed the change in Tang Zheng's momentum. It was obvious that his strength had increased a lot. He became more and more shocked, and cold sweat broke out on his head. As smart as he was, of course, he understood that Tang Zheng must have absorbed his power and turned it into his own. He had never heard of this kind of divine skill. He couldn't help but feel that his liver and guts were about to burst. He shouted, Hurry up." Song Yu's attack power had increased greatly. Yi Dingdang was overwhelmed by the dazzling sword technique. Yi Tianlei and Feng Xinyang had been hit by Song Jianan's two palms and had lost their resistance. It was impossible for them to help Yi Dingdang. Yi Xuanji's expression changed. He hadn't lost his fighting strength, but he could only watch his granddaughter in danger. Song Yu's sword technique was very gaudy, but within the gaudy was an extremely sharp sword move that had a very strong, bewildering effect. If an ordinary sword technique was too flashy, its attacking power would naturally be greatly reduced. However, this sword technique was different. It was unknown what kind of genius the creator of this sword technique was to actually hide so many killing moves within the flashy sword technique, causing people to be unable to guard against them. It was another series of dazzling attacks. Yi Dingdang was at the center of the sword light. She brandished the clear wind sword to resist. However, most of Song Yu's sword moves were feints. She had no choice but to use her sword to block them, which consumed a lot of energy. Suddenly, Yi Dingdang blocked another feint. A beam of sword light suddenly shot up from below, but she had no time to block it. If she was hit, her stomach would definitely be cut open. This was a real killing move. No, Tang Zheng had been silently paying attention to the battle situation. Seeing this dangerous situation, he could no longer bear it and gave up on Song Jinan. His figure flashed and blocked in front of Yi Dingdang. Puff! The long sword cut open his clothes, leaving a long sword mark on his chest. Blood flowed out. Tang Zheng frowned, but he did not retreat. Behind him was Yi Dingdang. He had no way to retreat, so he quickly reached out and grabbed the sharp long sword. Song Yu felt as if the long sword was caught in a vice. He could not move an inch. Seeing the murderous intent in Tang Zheng's eyes, he was shocked. Ka! The long sword was broken into two, and Tang Zheng held onto one of the short swords, directly thrusting it towards Song Yu. Song Yu tilted his head to the back. Although he managed to avoid being hit in the vitals, his face still blossomed with blood. That handsome face of his was slashed open with a 10 centimeters long wound. Song Yu grimaced and quickly retreated. Song Jianan broke free. The soles of his feet were oiled. He shouted, run. Run. This was the only thought left in Song Yu's mind. He also knew that Tang Zheng was not a match for him. Even the old man had suffered a loss. The opponent was ridiculously strong. The grandfather and grandson were like stray dogs. They no longer had the arrogance from before. They flew out of the hall. Tang Zheng's anger had not subsided. He roared, "You want to run? Watch this sword." His palm sucked in the air, and the War Soul sword returned to his hand. Then, with a sharp sound, the War Soul sword flew out of his hand and flew towards Song Yu. Puff! The War Soul sword pierced through Song Yu's back. Song Yu staggered and almost fell to the ground. Luckily, Song Jianan lifted him up. With a leap, he jumped onto the roof and escaped without a trace. The War Soul sword flew back. There were still traces of Song Yu's blood on the sword. Tang Zheng was not sure if the sword had killed Song Yu, but even if he did not die, he would lose a layer of skin. "How are you?" Yi Dingdang impatiently rushed in front of Tang Zheng. She saw that his chest was dyed red with blood. She could not see the wound clearly, but it was extremely sinister and terrifying. Her face immediately turned pale. She panicked and said, "Don't scare me. How are you?" At the critical moment, her feelings for Tang Zheng were revealed. Tang Zheng smiled. It was very bright like a child. "You can still smile." Yi Dingdang snappily scolded. Tang Zheng heartlessly smiled and said, "You still care about me." Yi Dingdang's cheeks turned red. She rolled her eyes at him and pretended to be calm as she said, "Who cares about you? Don't think too much. Seeing that you can smile, you must be fine." With that, she ran to the side. Her heart was beating like a deer. She took a few deep breaths to stabilize her emotions. "Dad, Feng Xinyang, how are you two?" When Yi Tianlei and Feng Xinyang saw that the enemy had been defeated, they finally breathed a sigh of relief. They forced themselves to stand up and shook their heads. "We're fine. It's good that you're fine." With that said, they looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated expression. All sorts of feelings welled up in their hearts. It was as if they had 1,000 words to say, but they did not know where to start. No one expected things to turn out like this. The Song family was crazy. They actually dared to lay their hands on Yi Dingdang. Their daughter was their precious treasure, their lifeblood. If they dared to lay their hands on Yi Ding Dang, then they dared to fight with their lives on the line. The Song family's actions completely shattered the last trace of good feelings in their hearts. Now, no matter who wanted to matchmake Yi Ding Dang and Song Yu, unless they stepped over their dead bodies, they could forget about succeeding. Tang Zheng glanced at the two of them. From their expressions, he already got the answer he wanted. This marriage was completely ruined by him. He smiled brilliantly again. "Father, it seems that we are not suitable to stay in this house, so we will immediately move out of this house." Yi Tianlei said resolutely to Yi Xuanji, who had been standing by the side and watching silently. Yi Xuanji's performance had disappointed them. Facing an external enemy, he did not care at all, as if their life and death had nothing to do with him. Yi Tianlei was truly angry. As a husband and father, if he continued to compromise and stay in this family, then he would look down on himself. He couldn't help but feel fortunate that he had made the right choice in leaving this family back then. Otherwise, who knew what kind of person he would have become? If he became like Yi Xuanji, then he would be extremely terrifying. And Yi Dingdang was also very likely to become like Yi Meiyu. Just thinking about it made him shudder. Leaving the Ye family once again, he did not hesitate. Instead, it was a form of relief. Perhaps he did not belong to this big family after all. Although his surname was Yi, the blood flowing in his body was already very different from the Ye family. Yi Tianlei looked at Yi Tianlei with a complicated expression. Hearing his resolute words, he did not object. He understood Yi Tianlei and knew that he had already made up his mind to leave. Of course, this was not the only reason why he did not urge him to stay. Another reason was the most important one, and that was because when he saw Tang Zheng fighting just now, he had already thought about a lot of things. If he helped Yi Dingdang, then the Ye family would completely break off from the Song family, and it would be difficult to repair this rift. The Song family was powerful, and this was something that he did not want to see. Therefore, unless it was absolutely necessary, he would definitely not completely break off from the Song family, and would also not help Yi Dingdang. Furthermore, Tang Zheng was too powerful. If he broke off from the Song family, and then repaired his relationship with Tang Zheng, or even used Yi Dingdang to marry him, he would definitely be able to gain Tang Zheng's good impression. But in this way, Tang Zheng would have one foot in the Ye family. With the speed at which Tang Zheng's strength soared, in a few years, no one in the Ye family would be able to suppress him. He would then be able to take everything from the Ye family for himself. The Ye family would no longer be surnamed Yi, but Tang. This was the scene that Yi Xuanji did not want to see the most. If this really happened, he would feel ashamed to face the ancestors of the Ye family, and would not have the face to see them in the afterlife. With all these factors mixed together, Yi Xuanji decided to stand by and do nothing, causing Yi Tianlei's family of three to be completely disappointed. Yi Xuanji did not try to keep Yi Tianlei from leaving the family, because after they left, Tang Zheng would no longer have a legitimate reason to enter the Ye family. The Ye family would really be safe. In the future, he would pass the Ye family to another son, and then the Ye family would still be surnamed Yi. His wishful thinking was very good, and ordinary people would not be able to guess what he was thinking. However, no one guessed, because Yi Xuanji's actions were already chilling, and no one was bothered to guess. Tang Zheng was the happiest about the three of them leaving the Ye family. After leaving Yi Xuanji, no one could interfere with Yi Dingdang's freedom. This was definitely a good thing for him and Yi Dingdang. Moreover, Yi Dingdang's concern just now seemed to have activated the feelings in his heart. She still cared about him and liked him, but she deliberately put on a straight face. It was enough to confirm this point. He secretly sized up Yi Dingdang, only to discover that she was also looking at him from the corner of her eyes. When she saw his eyes, she felt as if she had been electrocuted and hurriedly retracted her gaze, as if nothing had happened. Tang Zheng couldn't help but laugh involuntarily. "Uncle Yi, let me help you." Seeing that Yi Tianlei could not move, Tang Zheng quickly offered his help and helped Yi Tianlei. Yi Tianlei looked at him with relief, nodded, and did not refuse. Yi Dingdang bit her lips, and the expression in her eyes kept changing. She also helped Feng Xinyang. Chapter 782. After leaving the Ye family, the three of them first found a hotel to stay in. Yi Tianlei and Feng Xinyang both needed time to heal their wounds. Tang Zheng accompanied them the entire time and carefully took care of them, while Yi Dingdang remained silent. After checking in, the three of them arrived at the luxurious suite. Yi Tianlei said with a face full of guilt, "Tang Zheng, thank you for helping us regardless of the past." Feng Xinyang also said, "Little handsome brother, only you truly care about our Dingdang." Yi Dingdang immediately lowered her head as her ears turned red. Tang Zheng faintly smiled. "This is what I should do. When I was in ordinary balance, you all helped me so much. We didn't help you even 1/10 of what you did for us. Are your wounds serious?" Feng Xinyang stared at his chest. He had already changed his clothes, but she could still see the blood on his collar. Tang Zheng moved his muscles and said, "Do I look like I'm in trouble?" Along the way, he had already used his qi to heal his wounds. Not only had the blood stopped flowing, but his wounds had also mostly healed under the effects of his qi. As his qi increased, the healing effects of his qi became more obvious. "You should go take a shower first and wash off the blood. Otherwise, you won't feel good," Feng Xinyang suggested. "That's fine too. You all should rest first." Tang Zheng entered a bathroom and closed the door, blocking out the sound of running water. The Ye family of three sat in the living room and fell into silence for a while. In the end, Feng Xinyang took the lead and said, "Ding Dang, raise your head. There is no gold on the ground. Tell me the truth. What are you and little handsome brother going to do?" Yi Ding Dang bit her lips as she couldn't help but recall the scene of Tang Zheng blocking the sword for her. The emotions in her heart were indescribable, but in that instant, she thought of the matter between him and other girls, and her mood fell to the bottom as she hesitantly said, "I don't know." "If you don't know, then who knows?" Feng Xinyang asked back. "Then what do you want me to do? Do you like little handsome brother? Tell me the truth." "I like him." "Then that's it. Anyone with a discerning eye can see that he also likes you. Both of you are in love with each other. Isn't this good? Do you know how many people dream about this?" Yi Ding Dang was silent. "Say it." Feng Xinyang was anxious, but he still has other women in his heart. Yi Ding Dang was forced into a corner and blurted out, Feng Xinyang and Yi Tianlei looked at each other and fell into silence. Yi Tianlei faintly sighed and said, "Tang Zheng is good at everything, but he is fickle in love." Feng Xinyang rolled her eyes at him and said, "Isn't this a common problem for you men? Fickle radish." Yi Tianlei suffered an unexpected calamity and innocently defended himself. "I'm not fickle in love. You want to?" "No, definitely not." Yi Tianlei shook his head in denial. Feng Xinyang directly ignored him and said to Yi Ding Dang, "Daughter, although little handsome brother has this problem, he is very outstanding in other aspects. He is also very good to you. Just now, he blocked the sword for you without any hesitation. Can other men do this?" Yi Ding Dang was speechless. Of course she knew the answer. It was extremely difficult for other men to do this. Since you both have each other in your hearts, but he has this problem, then what are you going to do? Feng Xinyang asked. Yi Ding Dang grabbed her hair in distress and buried her head in her knees. She muttered in confusion, "I don't know either." She really didn't know. Originally, she had made up her mind to cut all ties with Tang Zheng and completely disappear from his life. That was why she used Song Yu as a shield at school. But this time, Tang Zheng's actions completely disrupted her decision. From the time he rushed in to propose marriage without any hesitation, to the point of fighting, to the time he sacrificed himself to save her, every bit of it caused Yi Ding Dong's heart to surge. Even if her heart was made of stone, it would still be melted by this action. Moreover, deep down in her heart, she had always liked him. But she had never been able to convince herself to cross the hurdle in her heart. That was why she was so conflicted. She often thought that if she had known him earlier and fallen in love with him earlier, then perhaps there wouldn't be so many problems and they could fly away together. But when she thought about how outstanding Tang Zheng was and how other girls couldn't help but be attracted to him, She felt that even if that was the case, things might not go as she wished. Tang Zheng was like the brightest light, destined to attract many moths to the flame. Annoying, annoying, annoying. In short, she couldn't find the answer. Seeing her daughter so distressed, Feng Xinyang patted her shoulder and said, "Since you can't find the answer for now, then let nature take its course. Don't treat this little handsome guy as a life and death enemy. Slowly get to know him better, and maybe you'll get to know him better." AI, that's the only way. Yi Tianlei sighed. Although he felt that this would make his daughter suffer, if they separated, it would be even more painful and a big mistake. Yi Dingdang raised her head and said blankly, "Really? Why don't you give yourself a chance and give him a chance? Who can say for sure what will happen in the future?" Feng Xinyang shrugged. "Listen to your mother. I have a few more decades of experience than you. There's nothing wrong with that." Yi Dingdang hesitated for a moment, then pouted and compromised. "All right then." Creak. The door opened and Tang Zheng came out in clean clothes, saying, "You guys need a rest too. I'll take my leave after I'm done talking about something." Seeing him so serious, the three people's attention was drawn to him. "Actually, I went to the Ye family today to tell you guys about this matter. I was delayed just now." Tang Zheng continued, "You should all know about the demon race, right?" The three people nodded. The demon race was a branch of the cultivators. Moreover, there was the matter of the demon god descending. They had more or less heard some rumors. A few hundred years ago, the cultivators were banished to the sky beyond heaven, but now the demon race has returned to this world. They are still in the island nation, and no one knows when they will sneak back to Huaxia. The demon race has returned? The three people sucked in a breath of cold air. They had seen Tang Zheng's growth and strength. They had a more comprehensive and profound understanding of cultivators and understood the power of cultivators. Hearing that the demon race had returned, they were naturally shocked. Tang Zheng nodded heavily. "Yes, and it's not just one or two. It's estimated that the demon race's army has returned. Although the government already has a plan to deal with it, there will definitely be fish that slip through the net. If they set foot on this land, it won't just be a few people who will suffer, but everyone will be in danger. Perhaps the few great families will be the first to be affected. The return of the demon race would definitely be a big move. The few great families were like meat on the chopping board, and they were the fattest meat. The demon race would naturally choose to attack them. If they didn't take countermeasures as soon as possible, the few great families might be annihilated." Yi Tianlei naturally thought of this point and blurted out, "We must tell this news to father." Before he finished, he stopped. He had already left the Ye family and was no longer a member of the Ye family. Tang Zheng was very dissatisfied with Yi Xuanji and said, "Uncle Yi, I'm telling you this news because I don't want too many people to know about it. Do you understand?" Yi Tianlei wasn't an idiot and immediately understood Tang Zheng's thoughts. Whether the Ye family was destroyed or not was insignificant to Tang Zheng. Perhaps he was even happy to see it happen. Yi Tianlei secretly leaking information, Tang Zheng wouldn't approve of it. Although Yi Tianlei felt regretful, he didn't refute. He nodded and said, "All right, I'll listen to you. We'll keep this news in our stomachs." Feng Xinyang's feelings for the Ye family had long been exhausted. She was very satisfied with her husband's attitude and nodded approvingly. She asked, "Little handsome brother, then what should we do to deal with it? Try to raise your cultivation as much as possible and let your strength reach the peak." Tang Zheng emphasized, "All right, we'll listen to you. During this time, our priority is to cultivate. After leaving the Ye family, we have nothing else to do." Yi Tianlei and Feng Xinyang nodded in agreement. "If there's any news, I'll inform you immediately. Also, if there's anything you need, you can contact me. I'll do my best. Also, if anyone comes to cause trouble for you, you must inform me immediately." Feng Xinyang's heart skipped a beat and asked, "You're worried about the Song family?" Tang Zheng sneered. "I've absorbed a lot of Song Jianan's power, and he can't even protect himself. If he still dares to stir up trouble, then he's seeking death. However, even if he doesn't stir up trouble, I won't let them go." These words contained a strong, murderous aura, which made people feel very uneasy. Yi Tianlei quickly asked. You want to chase after the Song family? Of course, I've been too kind to the Song family. They've gone against me time and time again. They're really old enemies. At the Martial Arts Society convention, Song Yu once drugged me, causing me to almost die in the ring. If it weren't for my luck, I might have been killed by them. Tang Zheng gnashed his teeth in hatred. The old and new hatred added together was too much to count. You're saying that Song Yu did something at the Martial Arts Society convention? They still remembered Tang Zheng's situation in the ring. He was surrounded by danger. If he was careless, he might have died in the ring. The Song family actually used such a despicable method of drugging. It was really despicable. Feng Xinyang was indignant. I've long disliked the Song family. I didn't expect them to be such bad people. Little Handsome, fortunately you came in time. Otherwise, the Song family's wishes would have been fulfilled. Tang Zheng smiled faintly. It's not that I don't want to take revenge. It's just that the time hasn't come. Now that the time has come, I'll carefully settle the old and new grudges with them. Then what are you going to do? After all, the Song family's mansion is a place that the Song family has operated for many years. It's definitely an impregnable fortress. It's not an easy bone to chew. Yi Tianlei sighed. I haven't thought of the specific method yet, but it's necessary to take advantage of the situation. So, I'm going to act according to the circumstances when I reach the Song family. In short, the monk can run away, but the temple can't. This time, I must deal with the Song family ruthlessly and leave them an unforgettable impression. We'll help you, Feng Xinyang blurted out. Tang Zheng smiled and shook his head in refusal. He said goodbye and left. Chapter 783. The two of them left the room without a word and walked into the elevator. The atmosphere was a little awkward. Ding Dang, don't hide from me in the future, Tang Zheng said firmly. Yi Ding Dang looked up and glanced at him, not saying anything. You really don't want to talk to me? Tang Zheng asked mischievously. Thank you, Yi Ding Dang said in a low voice. Tang Zheng smiled indifferently. This is what I should do. If someone harasses you in the future, tell me. I promise I'll beat him up until his mother can't recognize him. Yi Ding Dang rolled her eyes and said, You only know how to hit people. Blind guy. If I don't hurt him, he won't know how powerful I am. Tang Zheng waved his fist. Violent maniac. Yi Ding Dang bit her lip and couldn't help but roll her eyes. Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. You're even more violent than me. In high school, you were the big sister of our school. Who knows how many people were afraid of you? Speaking of the embarrassing incident, Yi Ding Dang recalled and said, But you were never afraid of me. You weren't scary to begin with. You were so beautiful and attractive. Tang Zheng's mouth was as sweet as honey. If it were in the past, he would definitely not say such mushy words. But now that his relationship with Yi Ding Dang had improved, he was so excited that he blurted out such witty words. You've really become bad. We're on the first floor. Let's go. Yi Ding Dang urged. Walk with me for a while. No, let's go. Yi Ding Dang pushed him out of the elevator and quickly closed the door. She leaned against the elevator, her heart thumping. Just now, a man and a woman were alone in a small enclosed space. She was afraid that Tang Zheng would do something inappropriate. She didn't know how to deal with it. Perhaps she would fall into his trap. She shook her head and took a deep breath. Calm down, calm down. Don't think too much. Tang Zheng left the hotel in satisfaction. He felt that his trip had not been in vain since he had improved his relationship with Yi Ding Dang. However, today's matter was not over yet. He immediately rushed to the Song family. Song family occupied a large area, and they were all modern buildings built around a lake. On this trip, Tang Zheng did not think that he could keep a low profile, so he kicked the big iron door. The iron door fell down with a bang, scaring the guards who came to greet him. Tang Zheng didn't say a word. In just a few moves, he directly defeated the guard and knocked him to the ground, crying out in pain. Then, he rushed straight to the Song family's main building. It was a luxurious 3-story European-style villa. Song Jianan, don't be a coward. Come out. Tang Zheng roared like a loudspeaker. His voice spread in all directions, startling the birds in the forest and causing them to flap their wings and fly into the sky. There was no response. The servants and guards looked at the uninvited guest from afar. They never thought that there would be someone who dared to be so arrogant in the Song family. He pointed out Song Jianan's name and shouted at him. Moreover, Song Jianan seemed to have disappeared and did not respond. Tang Zheng frowned and said, "Don't tell me you're going to run away so quickly. You can run away from the monk, but you can run away from the temple. I don't believe you're willing to part with such a big family business." The others did not understand what he meant. They heard him continue, "Everyone in this building come out. Otherwise, don't blame me if you're buried alive." A large group of people ran out of the building. They looked at him in horror, not knowing what he was going to do. The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth curled up into a smile. He opened his palm, and the War Soul sword appeared in his palm. Then, he pointed forward, and the War Soul sword turned into a sword light, fiercely slashing at a few pillars of the building. Boom! 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 The heavy pillars were like tofu under War Spirit. They were cut in half. The building immediately creaked and was on the verge of collapse. Song Jianan, you can continue to be a coward. Today, I will tear down your entire house. Boom! A loud sound covered Tang Zheng's voice. The building actually collapsed. Smoke and dust filled the sky and spread in all directions. Tang Zheng frowned. This Song Jianan was really determined. Tang Zheng had created such a big scene, but he still avoided meeting him. Shua! Suddenly, a sword light lit up in the smoke and dust. It slashed towards Tang Zheng. It was extremely sharp. Good sword technique. Tang Zheng exclaimed. He held War Spirit tightly and welcomed it. In the smoke and dust, sword light flashed in all directions. Sparks flew everywhere. Only a series of ping, 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 ping sounds could be heard. However, the two figures could not be seen clearly. The surrounding people were all excited. Finally, someone stood up to defend against this uninvited guest. Suddenly, two figures soared into the sky from the smoke and dust and landed in front of the lake. Finally, they could see each other's appearance clearly. Tang Zheng's pupils slightly shrank. The other party was in his 30s and held a long sword in his hand. His entire body was like a sword, as if he had become one with the sword in his hand. Just now, the two of them had exchanged no less than 100 moves. Tang Zheng could clearly feel the power of the other party's sword techniques. In terms of sword techniques, it was already a rare sword technique. His sword technique was very simple and concise. It was different from Song Yu's fancy sword technique. It was somewhat similar to the wind-chasing sword technique, but it was also very different. His sword technique focused on fast attacks. Moreover, there were not many moves. Back and forth, Tang Zheng had already experienced all the moves. There were only a total of 13 moves. A set of sword techniques with a total of 13 moves was already very concise. If it was not created by a sword master, it would be impossible to create such a set of sword techniques. The other party was obviously a sword master, and his cultivation was definitely not low. Tang Zheng roughly estimated that he was probably a great master martial artist. Strange, I've never heard of such a sword master in the Song family. Tang Zheng muttered, but he couldn't help but think of Song Yu's fancy sword technique. Could it be that Song Yu's sword technique was taught by this person? However, the sword moves of the two were completely different. Let's take this person down first. Then, the truth will be revealed. Tang Zheng raised his sword and attacked again. Since his opponent was using a sword, he naturally disdained to use a divine weapon like the heaven-shocking bow to fight against him. He wanted to use his sword techniques to defeat his opponent fair and square. The sword technique of the heaven-flying immortal had many changes, and they were all upright sword moves with a terrifying aura. When Tang Zheng's wrist shook, he raised the War Soul sword. Hua! The surface of the lake rippled and even created a wave. Together with the unparalleled sword technique, it attacked the enemy. The opponent's expression did not change. With a stomp of his feet, he stepped on the tip of the grass and flew up. The tip of the sword touched the surface of the water, and the sword actually bent and bounced back in an instant. However, a few drops of water had already shot out from the tip of the sword like bullets. Bang! The water droplets blossomed on the War Soul sword, and the huge force caused the War Soul sword to buzz. A numbing feeling came from the center of his palm, showing how powerful the water droplets were. Tang Zheng shouted out, "Good!" as the battle spirit sword was already in front of the opponent. With a schwa sound, the sword light was oppressive as it pierced towards the opponent's upper, middle, and lower body 3 times, all of which were aimed at the vital points. Clang, 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 clang. The 3 sword strikes were extremely fast, blocking Tang Zheng's 3 sword strikes. Furthermore, they were all sword moves that Tang Zheng had seen before. The 13 sword moves in his opponent's hands were used to perfection, causing people to exclaim from the bottom of their hearts. Tang Zheng continued to attack quickly, using speed to fight speed. Not long later, there were only the 2's erratic afterimages and the crisp sounds of the 2 swords clashing by the lake. In the end, the 2 of them moved the battlefield from the land to the lake. They stepped on the water surface and moved towards the center of the lake. This test was not only about sword moves, but also about overall strength. The 2 of them stepped on the surface of the lake, but did not fall into the water. Not long after, the 2 sides showed the difference. Tang Zheng's shoes were not wet at all, but his opponent's shoes were completely wet. Who was stronger and who was weaker was already obvious. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up and said with a smile, "Your cultivation is not as good as mine, but your sword technique is not bad. You are bitterly holding on, but in the end, you are not my opponent." The opponent did not say a word and silently moved his sword. "Your sword technique is so powerful. What sect do you come from? What is your relationship with the Song family?" Tang Zheng asked in a powerful voice. The opponent did not say a word, as if he was mute. Tang Zheng stared at the sharp sword light, and his heart suddenly moved. There were very few sword masters in this world, and the most famous was of course the sword god. Tang Zheng had seen the power of the sword god with his own eyes. If it was not for luck, he would have died at the hands of the sword god. The sword god established the sword pavilion, and there were many sword slaves in the sword pavilion. They were not weak, and their sword techniques could be considered to have many highlights. Moreover, he also had personal disciples. In the sinkhole in the Changbai mountain, he had seen the sword god's disciple with his own eyes, and it had left a deep impression on him. This person's sword technique was so powerful. Could it be that he also came from the sword pavilion, or even the sword god's disciple? "You are the sword god's disciple?" Tang Zheng suddenly asked in surprise. The opponent was clearly stunned for a moment, and there was immediately a flaw in his sword technique. Obviously, Tang Zheng had hit the nail on the head. Tang Zheng was overjoyed. With a heaven-flying immortal, the opponent's chest was hit by the sword and fell into the lake. "You are indeed the sword god's disciple." Tang Zheng was certain of this from the other party's reaction. "Where is he?" Tang Zheng wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to pursue, but he found that the other party had already disappeared from the lake. "Are you playing hide and seek with me? Where's Soul Sword go?" Tang Zheng pointed his finger, and the War Soul sword shot into the lake. At the bottom of the lake, the sword light flashed, illuminating the entire lake. The lake water surged with stormy waves, like a surging sea. Boom! A pillar of water soared into the sky, and the enemy appeared. His clothes were already dyed red with blood, and the War Soul sword chased after him and attacked him nonstop. He reacted in a panic, and was no longer as skilled as before. It was obvious that Tang Zheng's sword was not weak, and it caused him quite a bit of damage. The corner of Tang Zheng's mouth curled up, and he said proudly, "Now that I've appeared, let's see where you can run to." Since the other party was the sword god's disciple, then he definitely knew something about the Azure Dragon Palace. Tang Zheng was worried that he wouldn't be able to find the Azure Dragon Palace, but the other party actually delivered it to him. Tang Zheng pounced forward, using the heaven-flying immortal sword technique, causing the enemy to retreat step by step. In the end, he retreated to the shore, and with a PU sound, he received another sword strike, causing blood to immediately flow out from his calf. Chapter 784. You are the disciple of the famous sword god. I wonder how I should address you. Tang Zheng asked with a smile. Sword 13. The other party had already seen through his identity, so Sword 13 did not hide it anymore. So you're not a mute. Sword 13. 13 swords, it's very appropriate. Your sword technique is very strange. It's only 13 moves, but its power is boundless. Tang Zheng praised. Sword 13 coldly snorted and said, Of course, this was created by Master. Tang Zheng's eyes were filled with admiration. Although the sword god was an enemy, he had no choice but to sincerely admire his attainments in sword techniques. His disciples all had different sword techniques, but they were all created by him. Just this creativity was something that ordinary people could not compare to. A dignified disciple of the sword god actually appeared in the Song family, and Song Yu miraculously possessed a powerful sword technique. In that case, Song Yu is also a disciple of the sword god? Tang Zheng, you've gone too far. Not only did you heavily injure junior brother Song, you've even killed your way to our door. As the eldest senior brother, how can I sit idly by? Sword 13 said angrily. So you're still the eldest senior brother. I've already met your other junior brother in Changbai Mountain. I wonder how many disciples the sword god has. Master has a total of 3 disciples. Each of them is Sword 8, an expert in sword techniques, and has a unique comprehension of sword techniques. Tang Zheng nodded and said, So it's 3 people. The sword god even took in a villain like Song Yu as his disciple. It seems like he's only a so-so. How dare you? How can Master allow you to insult him? Sword 13 roared with a flushed face, trying to resist, but with the war soul sword pressed against his throat, he was unable to move. Why can't the sword god be insulted? Actually, I've always wanted to find him, but I didn't know where to find him, so you ran out. This is exactly what I wanted. Tang Zheng smiled like a big bad wolf. Sword 13's heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly asked, Why are you looking for Master? To inquire about the Azure Dragon Palace. However, as his direct disciple, and also the eldest senior brother, you must know some things about the Azure Dragon Palace. Why don't you tell me? Azure Dragon Hall. Sword 13's expression changed greatly, and he hurriedly denied it. I don't know what you're talking about. Your reaction has already betrayed you. You definitely know about the Azure Dragon Palace. Are you going to tell me yourself? Or do you want me to force you to tell me? If I do, you will definitely suffer a lot. Jian Shan raised his neck, as if he was a brave warrior that had sacrificed himself for a cause, and he said in an awe-inspiring and fearless manner, If you want to kill me, then do as you please. You want me to reveal information about the Azure Dragon Hall? Dream on. Is that so? Haha, I have my ways even if you don't tell me. Tang Zheng was very confident. Jian Shan was an enemy. Although his integrity was respectable, Tang Zheng did not plan to be merciful. Jian Shan was a grandmaster martial artist. If he were to let the tiger return to the mountain, then there would be no end of trouble. No matter what, he could not be soft-hearted. Moreover, Sword 13 even knew the information about the Azure Dragon Palace. If Tang Zheng did not take away this information, then it would be even more impossible to find the Azure Dragon Palace. Jian Shan glared fiercely at Tang Zheng. He did not believe that the other party could pry open his mouth. Tang Zheng's expression turned cold. He made a move like lightning and grabbed Jian Shan's head. Jian Shan exclaimed, What are you doing? Tang Zheng immediately activated the soul-searching technique, and the information in his mind flashed before Tang Zheng's eyes like a movie. Let me go, my head hurts. Jian Shan roared in a heart-wrenching manner. The soul-searching technique had a side effect, which could cause people to become retarded. However, Jian Shan's cultivation was deep, and his perseverance was outstanding. He actually resisted the side effect and did not become a fool. Jian Shan felt something in his heart and exclaimed, You're reading my brain. Tang Zheng looked at him in surprise. He could even feel this. A grandmaster martial artist was indeed extraordinary. Don't even think about succeeding. The light in Jian Shan's eyes exploded as he grabbed onto the War Soul sword. Puff! The war soul sword pierced in his throat, cutting off his windpipe. Ga. The corner of Jian Shisan's mouth revealed a complacent smile, and he was already speechless. You actually committed suicide. Tang Zheng turned pale with fright. He was truly shocked. In order to preserve the information in his mind, Jian Shisan was actually willing to give up his life. Just what kind of organization was the Azure Dragon Palace to be able to nurture such a death warrior? Jian Shisan's eyes were completely devoid of life as he fell to the ground with a loud bang. A grandmaster of a generation, a great swordsman, ended his life just like that. Tang Zheng did not have time to sigh with emotion. The more the other party did this, the more he wanted to know more about the Azure Dragon Palace. If he did not know anything about the Azure Dragon Palace, then who knows when the other party would stab him in the back, and by then, it would be too late. He hurriedly sorted out the information he had searched. Although it was only a part of it, it had already enlightened him. Jian Shisan really does know a lot about the Azure Dragon Palace. Tang Zheng sighed. It turned out that the Azure Dragon Palace was an ancient organization that was created by New Era back then. It had been hundreds of years since then. When he thought of New Era, Tang Zheng couldn't help but think of the matter of him expelling the Cultivators. New Era could be said to be at the peak of the martial artists, and from ancient times until now, he was the only one who had accomplished such a feat. Although the Cultivators were expelled, New Era was not satisfied, and secretly established the Azure Dragon Palace. At the beginning, there was only the Azure Dragon Palace, and they were responsible for hunting down some of the cultivators who had escaped the net. Furthermore, the Azure Dragon Palace had created a team of assassins that caused people to tremble at the mention of their name: Flying Guillotine. Many of the fish that had escaped the net had died at the hands of the Flying Guillotine, and their huge heads were hung on the city walls for public display. After several years of killing, all the cultivators in the world were finally wiped out. However, New Era did not give up. He had planned ahead and expected that there would definitely be cultivators in the future. After all, cultivators had left behind many cultivation techniques in this world. Therefore, he divided the Azure Dragon Palace into two branches: Martial Sect and Li Palace. The Martial Sect was responsible for killing the cultivators who had revived from the ashes, while the Li Palace was responsible for collecting information from all over the world. However, these two organizations were relatively independent existences. Other than a very small number of people who knew about the relationship between the two, no one else knew anything about it. As for the Azure Dragon Palace, it was completely hidden behind the scenes and only passed down in legends. Ordinary people would never be able to know anything about the Azure Dragon Palace. The master of the Azure Dragon Palace was called the Revered Lord, and even the Sword 13 did not know his true appearance. He had only seen him once from afar, and was extremely mysterious. Currently, there were a total of 4 great organizations under the Azure Dragon Palace: Martial Sect, Li Palace, Sword Pavilion, and the most mysterious Flying Guillotine. The Flying Guillotine had not appeared in the world for more than 100 years, and even the Sword 13 had only heard about it from the Sword God. However, it was said that the Flying Guillotine was the most mysterious power in the Revered Lord's hands, and every one of them had at least the cultivation of a great master martial artist. As for the exact number of people, the Sword 13 did not know, but without a doubt, how terrifying the killing power of a team formed by great master martial artists was. Immediately, Tang Zheng felt a chill run down his spine. So there was such a terrifying force hidden in the land of Huaxia. As for the exact location of the Azure Dragon Palace, Tang Zheng was unable to find it. He could not help but feel extremely regretful. If he were to search through all the information in the Sword 13's mind, he would probably know even more secrets of the Azure Dragon Palace. Looking at the wide-eyed Sword 13 who had died with grievances, Tang Zheng shook his head and did not pay any more attention to him. He raised his head and looked at the vast Song family, then raised his voice and shouted, "Song Jianan, Song Yu, listen up. Don't think that you can sit back and relax with the Sword God's protection. Today, if you don't come out and watch the Sword 13 die for you, I think the Sword God will be furious. There will be a day when you appear. At that time, not only me, even the sword god will not let you off. The other servants and guards kept quiet out of fear. They looked around, but did not see the appearance of the Song Jianin grandfather and grandson. Tang Zheng shook his head helplessly. No matter how he provoked them, there was nothing he could do if they were determined not to show themselves. As for the others, he did not plan to do anything. After all, he was not a bloodthirsty person. Although these people were members of the Song family, they did not deserve to die. Thus, he leaped and left the Song family as fast as lightning. In a hidden underground fortress, the backbone of the Song family gathered together in fear. Just now, the scene of Tang Zheng causing a ruckus in the Song family had already been transmitted from various cameras. Seeing Tang Zheng being so brave and extraordinary, and even the sword god's disciple, the Sword 13, committing suicide in the end, one could imagine the shock they received. Song Jianan stood with an ashen face, looking at Song Yu, who was lying on the bed. Song Yu's body was wrapped in gauze, like a mummy. Song Yu's face was as pale as paper. Recalling the scene just now and the scene of the war soul sword piercing his back, he could not help but tremble nonstop. This time, he was truly scared out of his wits by Tang Zheng, especially when even his eldest senior brother, the Sword 13, whom he had always respected, was unable to escape from Tang Zheng's hands, which made him shudder even more. The Sword 13 had practiced the sword since he was young and was extremely hardworking. At the age of 30, he had already reached the first stage of the Grandmaster stage and could be said to be a genius. Song Yu had already acknowledged the sword god as his master for more than 10 years and had always kept it a secret. Other than Song Jianan, even his father did not know. Song Yu's potential was obviously not as good as the Sword 13's, but he could still be considered one of the best among the younger generation. Due to the restrictions of the sword god, he did not display his strength in front of others, and was even treated by many people as if he did not have the strength to truss a chicken. He had always been waiting for the day when he soared into the sky, causing everyone to be shocked and their jaws to drop. However, he did not wait for this day, but instead received this huge blow. Tang Zheng's speed was like a ruthless slap to Song Yu's face, causing the complacency in his heart to vanish into thin air. Eldest senior brother is dead. What should we do now? Song Yu said in shock. The other backbone of the Song family kept quiet out of fear. No one dared to answer, and all looked at Song Jianan. Song Jianan muttered to himself in silence, staring at the corpse of the Sword 13. They only saw the scene of the previous battle, but did not hear the conversation between the two. But in the end, they heard Tang Zheng's loud roar clearly. Chapter 785. Song Jianan's expression kept changing as he looked at the guards and servants on the screen. With so many witnesses, even if he wanted to hide it, it would be very difficult. Kill them all. Song Jianan's eyes were filled with killing intent as he roared. When the others heard this, they jumped in fright. Family head, who do we kill? All of you, get out and kill everyone outside. Don't leave a single one alive. Song Jianan said with killing intent. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air as they looked at him in disbelief. Song Yu's heart skipped a beat as she guessed what the family head was thinking. She immediately urged, "That's right, kill them. Then Shizun will only think that eldest senior brother died at Tang Zheng's hands. Then all the responsibility will be placed on Tang Zheng, and our Song family will be able to stay out of this." The others weren't idiots and immediately understood. Their eyes also became fervent. Kill them all. Everyone cheered and jumped for joy. Song Jianan's eyes trembled as he shouted, "Then what are you still doing here? Hurry up and go." A moment later, the scene on the screen became particularly bloody. The guards and servants were completely unprepared and were all killed by the core members of the Song family. Blood dyed the ground red. Song Jianan clenched his fists, blue veins popping out. He gritted his teeth and said, "Tang Zheng, I will return all of this to you in the future. I will make you beg for death." In the Yin family, Tang Zheng received a great welcome. Yin Shushan and Yin Luyan were at the door to welcome him. After Tang Zheng left the Song family, he decided to go to the Yin family and tell them about the demon race so that they could prepare. The news of Tang Zheng killing his way to the Song family had already spread. After all, the Song family was a big family. With such a big commotion, it was impossible to hide it. As a result, the entire capital was shaken. It was like a large earthquake. No one had ever dared to challenge an entire family by himself. This was something that no one had ever dared to do. However, Tang Zheng had done it. Under the watchful eyes of so many people, there was no falsehood at all. The Yin family also knew this, so when they saw Tang Zheng, the father and son looked a little strange. Tang Zheng's strength had already far surpassed them, and was even comparable to the Yin family. Back then, who would have thought that Tang Zheng would be able to reach this step so quickly? No one. As a result, the two of them admired the old man, Yin Potion's decision from the bottom of their hearts. Ginger was indeed spicier as it got older. To bet everything on Tang Zheng so early on, it was simply too wise, and many people were probably already extremely envious of him. It was foreseeable that after this battle, many people would take the initiative to offer their affection to Tang Zheng in an attempt to obtain his appreciation or protection. In the past, although Tang Zheng had gradually revealed his edge in the hearts of the people, it was still difficult for him to contend against the few great families. But now, it was different from the past. His edge had completely overshadowed the few great families, and he was a new and powerful force. If he did not curry favor early, then he would be an idiot. As for whether or not they would offend the Song family, many people did not care. After all, Tang Zheng's strength had already overshadowed the Song family. So what if the Song family had any objections? He still couldn't stir up any waves. Therefore, the Yin family attached great importance to Tang Zheng's initiative to visit. After exchanging a few pleasantries, the two of them arrived at the guest hall together. Yin Patian had been waiting for a long time. Facing Yin Patian, Tang Zheng was very modest. Yin Patian could not hide the joy in his eyes, and took the initiative to invite Tang Zheng to sit at the seat of honor. Young Master Tang, everyone has witnessed your great generosity today. It's truly shocking, Yin Patian said emotionally. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I won't be merciful, Tang Zheng said resolutely. Yin Patian nodded his head. Young heroes, it should be so. Song family has been jumping around a lot recently. After this battle, they can stop for a while. It's even better if they don't stop. Then they won't be cowards, and I can find them. Tang Zheng said hatefully. This time, Song Jianin did not come out, but let Sword 13 fight alone. In the end, Sword 13 died, but they still did not come out. They really are bastards. Hiding and not coming out? Yin Patian asked suspiciously. Are you saying that old man Song Jianin did not appear, and instead let Sword 13 fight? That's right. The three people from the Yin family looked at each other with strange expressions. Tang Zheng frowned and asked, Is there something wrong? Yin Luyin took a deep breath and interrupted. Young Master Tang, the rumors outside are completely different from this. Rumor has it that after a great battle, not only did you kill Sword 13, you also killed over 100 people from the Song family. The Song family can be said to be flowing with blood like a river, and corpses everywhere. What? Tang Zheng jumped up from the sofa. Calm down. Seeing his big reaction, Yin Patian hurriedly advised. How could Tang Zheng not be shocked? This was too different from the truth. Song family's intentions are sinister. To actually spread such an outrageous lie. Lies, isn't this true? The three people from the Yin family asked suspiciously. Tang Zheng's expression turned cold and said, Of course it's not true. Only Sword 13 died, and it was suicide. Some of the other guards were only injured by me and did not die. How could I have killed everyone? But the Song family's blood flowed like a river, and corpses were everywhere. All of the guards and servants were dead. Many people are saying that you are actually so cruel. Yin Luyun said. Cruel? Tang Zheng was unable to restrain his anger and laughed in anger. He did not kill a single person, but he was said to be cruel, and the Song family relied on their power to bully others. How many people died in their hands? Yin Patian hit the nail on the head. Since the rumors are far from the truth, then there must be something fishy going on. Then who killed these people? A thief calling out to catch a thief. Other than Song Jianan, who else could it be? Tang Zheng sneered. Why did he kill so many people? Tang Zheng had an idea and said, I know, this is a framing, eliminating all the witnesses and then pushing all of this onto me. Otherwise, if outsiders hear that the Song family is hiding and not coming out, wouldn't that be a joke to the world? Now, they have transferred a lot of their anger to me, while the Song family has played the role of a victim. More importantly, all of this is probably related to the death of Sword 13. Tang Zheng was very smart and immediately saw through the other party's scheme. This kind of framing trick was not clever, and one did not need to be too smart to see through it with a single glance. The other three people's hearts stirred, and they also guessed the reason, and said, You're saying that those people were all killed by the Song family themselves, and then blamed it on you, causing the Sword God to vent his anger on you, and the Song family to completely disassociate themselves from it. Tang Zheng nodded, and said with a bit of a chill in his heart, So you can see how sinister and cunning the Song family is, and how unscrupulous they are. Yin Liyun sucked in a cold breath and said, To actually do such a thing to their own people, they are truly insane. Tang Zheng, your guess should be correct. Yin Patian said in a deep voice, The Song family has never been a benevolent dog generation. Back then, their ancestors relied on their ruthlessness and unscrupulous methods to make their fortune. It seems that their descendants have also inherited this point. But this is too cruel. He even did such a vicious thing to his own people and killed so many people. Yin Luyun said with lingering fear. Tang Zheng, on the other hand, was not surprised at all. He had even seen people who sacrificed tens of thousands of lives to activate the Mountain River blood sacrifice array, so the Song family was nothing compared to them. Although the Song family is vicious, they have made contact with the Sword God, which is already powerful enough. The Sword God will definitely listen to their lies and aim his hair at you, young Master Tang. The Sword God is not like Song Jianan, so it will be troublesome when the time comes. Yin Qishan said worriedly. Yin Patian and Yin Luyun also nodded in agreement. The Sword God was too mysterious to them, so they naturally couldn't help but respect him. You don't have to worry. I've already clashed head-on with the Sword God. He's not that scary. Tang Zheng said indifferently, but he did not say the second half. He was not worried about the Sword God, but the Azure Dragon Palace behind him. When the three people from the Yin family heard this, they were once again greatly shocked. Tang Zheng had actually exchanged blows with the Sword God. Seeing him make such a solemn vow, the three of them had complicated feelings and said, But we can't let our guard down. Now, everyone knows that the Song family and the Sword God have an extraordinary relationship, and Song Yu is even the disciple of the Sword God. Although the Song family has gone through this great calamity and lost all face, no one dares to underestimate him, and the Song family will not fall immediately. The Song family revealing this information can be said to be killing two birds with one stone. They're truly old foxes. In the future, when they have nowhere to hide, I will definitely take care of them. Let's get down to business first. This time, I am here to warn you of one thing. The Demon Clan has already returned. Tang Zheng briefly told them about how the 100 Transformation Star Lord had used the Mountain River blood sacrifice array to summon the Demon Clan back, as well as the country's countermeasures. The three of them were stunned at the same time. They did not dare to underestimate this news and hurriedly asked about the details of the Demon Clan. Tang Zheng told them everything he knew and answered them in detail. With the return of the Demon Clan, this world is about to suffer a calamity. Tang Zheng, your mission is here. A clear voice came from outside the living room. Yin Xingyi was still wearing a green Taoist robe, with her hair tied up in a bun and a hairpin inserted into it. She leisurely walked over without any makeup. My mission? What mission? Tang Zheng did not understand. The other three also looked at her in confusion. Yan Qingyi walked straight in front of Tang Zheng and said, "The demon clan will destroy this world, and your mission is to turn the tide, save the people from hanging upside down, and return peace to the world, and return peace to the people." Eh, Tang Zheng was stunned. "You're the savior," Yan Qingyi added in a resolute tone. Yin Potion's expression was bewildered. Didn't Yan Qingyi say that he would not tell Tang Zheng about this prophecy back then? He was afraid that it would interfere with his decisions. So why did he suddenly say it out loud today? Tang Zheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. He had never thought of being a savior, and he did not have such a high level of awareness. Furthermore, it was not that easy to be a savior. A savior often meant a great sacrifice. Wasn't that how it played in movies? Either the death of a loved one or the death of a loved one. In short, the saviors seemed to be glorious, but in reality, there was a pain that outsiders did not know about. Chapter 786. Tang Zheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Stop joking. I'm not some savior." "You are," Yan Qingyi said stubbornly. "This is your fate. My fate is my own business. I don't even know. So how do you know?" "Because I saw your fate." Tang Zheng looked at her strangely and said, "When did you change your profession to become a fortune teller?" "Qingyi, don't spout nonsense." Seeing that Tang Zheng still did not believe him, Yan Patian immediately stopped him. Yan Qingyi, on the other hand, was very persistent. She bent down and almost touched Tang Zheng's face, and the two pairs of eyes were very close. Observing Yan Qingyi at such a close distance, it had to be said that she was truly beautiful. She was naturally beautiful without any makeup, and her loose Taoist robe was unable to completely conceal her alluring expression, especially her towering breasts, which were especially eye-catching when she bent down. Yan Qingyi did not notice Tang Zheng's impudent gaze from the corner of her eyes at all. She stared straight at him and said, "I'm not spouting nonsense. It doesn't matter if you believe me or not. This is your fate. You are the savior." His words were so convincing that after Tang Zheng was stunned, he could no longer treat it lightly. He didn't have much interaction with Yan Qingyi, but he knew that this person was not someone who would speak without thinking. Why was she so stubborn and determined that he was the savior of the world? What was the reason? Tang Zheng slowly restrained his expression and asked, "You said that you saw my fate. How can fate see it? I can see what will happen in the future." Yan Qingyi did not hide anything. Tang Zheng's pupils dilated. He had never heard of such a thing. It could be said to be a miracle, but there were too many things in the world that could not be explained by science, and they might not all be fake. After all, even cultivators had appeared, so everything was possible. "Prophecy," Tang Zheng exclaimed. Yan Qingyi nodded, more or less. This was the first time she had admitted her ability to anyone other than her family. Tang Zheng couldn't help but look at Yan Qingyi again. She was neither a martial artist nor a cultivator. She didn't even have the strength to truss up a chicken, yet she knew how to use the divination technique. "How do you know prophecy?" "I don't know, but I just can. My prophecy about you is especially strong," Yan Qingyi said. "Why?" "Maybe it's because you're the savior." Hearing her mention the savior again, Tang Zheng's expression became solemn. "Does the prophecy really show that I will be the savior?" Yan Qingyi nodded seriously. Tang Zheng's expression was unprecedentedly solemn as he said, "I never wanted to be a savior. What else is there in your prophecy? Why is this world in danger of destruction? Is it because of the demons?" "That's right." When the demon army arrived, the people were plunged into an abyss of misery and suffering. This world was on the verge of collapse, but it was you alone who turned the tide. "When did that happen?" Yan Qingyi shook his head. "My prophecy technique is not that accurate. I can only make a rough prediction." Seeing that he had already revealed it, Yan Patian asked, "Qingyi, you didn't mention the demon clan and the upcoming crisis. Could it be that you have made a new discovery recently?" "Yes, there's been a major breakthrough in the divination technique recently. The scene I saw has become clearer. Tang Zheng stood alone at the peak of the towering mountain, and at the foot of the mountain was the demon clan army. Tang Zheng fought alone, and in the end, the demon clan army was defeated, and this world was lucky. I fought against the demon clan army by myself, and I won in the end. Tang Zheng exclaimed in disbelief. This was truly beyond his imagination. With his cultivation, it was almost impossible for him to do this. Yan Qingyi said with incomparable certainty. Yes, as for the specific process, I am not clear, but in the end, you were victorious, standing at the peak of the mountain, and at the foot of the mountain were the remnants of the defeated demon clan army. What do you mean by not knowing the specific process? My prophecy technique is just some intermittent scenes, Yan Qingyi said regretfully. Then can you describe that mountain in detail? Mountain? Yan Qingyi asked curiously. All right, this mountain is very majestic, as if it is connected to the sky. It is covered in white snow, and people feel very small in front of this mountain. Is that it? Tang Zheng asked in disappointment. There were too many high mountains and steep ridges in the land of Huaxia. This description was too general, and many famous mountains were in line with it. Yan Qingyi frowned and started to think hard. The others all looked at her. The information expressed in this conversation was too much. In the past, the Yin family had only heard that Tang Zheng would be the savior of the world, but they did not know the specific details. This time, they heard that the demon army had besieged Tang Zheng, and in the end, Tang Zheng was victorious, so they also wanted to know more specific details. After a while, Yan Qingyi raised her head and said, There is a very strange place in one of the scenes. Oh, what strange place? There seems to be a ladder on the mountain peak, extending into the sky, leading to who knows where. Yan Qingyi said doubtfully. There was a ladder on the mountain peak, extending into the sky. No matter how you looked at it, it was extremely strange and did not conform to common sense. So much so that she had subconsciously overlooked it. If not for Tang Zheng's repeated questioning, she would not have thought of this scene. Tang Zheng became excited. His breathing rushed as he cried out in alarm. Celestial stairway. You are describing the celestial stairway. He finally knew where this mountain was. Mount Buzhou. In the end, he actually went to Mount Buzhou again and rebuilt the celestial stairway. Since the celestial stairway was built, the sky beyond heaven was naturally not an untouchable place. The sky beyond heaven was open to other righteous cultivators. In the end, you saw me standing on the mountain peak, while the demon army fled in all directions. Did you see anyone else? Since Yan Qingyi saw the demon army, she should have seen the righteous cultivators come down from the celestial stairway and defeat the ancestor of Mo's army. This was the most likely thing. No, Yan Qingyi said. Try to recall again. Was there anyone else? There really wasn't, Yan Qingyi said firmly. Tang Zheng's brows tightly knitted together again. This did not conform to common sense at all. Without the help of the righteous cultivators, how could he let the demon army escape? One question after another drilled into his mind, causing him to be at a loss for a while, unable to find an answer. Looking at Tang Zheng's reaction, the others cautiously asked, Tang Zheng, what's the problem? Tang Zheng slowly shook his head and said, I'll tell you the truth. With my cultivation, it is not enough to fight the demon army alone. Since the other party chased to the foot of the mountain, it means that I have no way to deal with it. And she said that I defeated the demon army with my own strength. This matter is contradictory. There is no reasonable explanation. But my prophecy is not wrong, Yan Qingyi said firmly, obviously very confident in her ability. Then it can only be said that your prophecy is not detailed. There must be something missing. Moreover, just based on these few scenes, you can't say that this is the end of the world, right? A light flashed in Tang Zheng's mind. She said with certainty that he was the savior, so it must be that the world was facing a disaster. But with the demon race's arrival, this world might not be a disaster, but there would be many people dying, the old order would collapse, and a new order would be established. I dare to say that this is the end of the world. Of course, there is a basis. The whole world is covered in black clouds. The waves are monstrous, and the earth is split open. It is a scene of death, as if in the next second the world will collapse. Yan Qingyi said with lingering fear. Even if she recalled that scene, she still had lingering fear, and a trace of cold air rose from the bottom of her heart. Then it is similar to the scene in the movies. It really is the end of the world. Tang Zheng closed his eyes, imagining that scene, making it difficult to breathe and suffocate. Since you said that the world is about to be destroyed, then what is the use of the demon race besieging me? Tang Zheng asked puzzledly. This? Yan Qingyi was speechless. In the end, she blankly shook her head. I also don't know. Since you said that I am the savior, then in the end, did I succeed in saving the world? Of course. The clouds dispersed, the waves calmed down, the earth also stopped shaking, and the world was once again filled with vitality. Yan Qingyi recalled that scene, feeling as if she had survived a disaster, and the corners of her mouth involuntarily rose into a smile. Tang Zheng became more and more confused. He could not imagine what was going on. Where did he have the ability to save the world? Why did the world become like the end of the world? Tang Zheng sighed, unwillingly asking. Yan Qingyi shook her head in shame. I don't know. But thinking about it, it should be caused by the demon race. Tang Zheng gave a non-committal laugh, saying, Your prophecy is too vague. There are many places without details. The key is that it does not make sense. Actually, I did not intend to tell you this at the beginning. I did not want to disrupt your train of thought and steps. But recently my prophecy of the end of the world has become more and more detailed. Those few scenes have only become clear recently. And just now I heard you mention the return of the demon race, so I decided to tell you as soon as possible, hoping that it will be of some help to you, so that you will not take the wrong path. Yan Qingyi said, The survival of humanity, and even the survival of the world, depends on you alone. Although you do not understand the deeper meaning of this right now, and even think that there are many places that are too contradictory, I firmly believe that this is just because the time is not right. Once the time is right, everything will follow naturally, and you'll not have any more doubts. Seeing her solemn vow, Tang Zheng did not know whether to be happy that he was the savior, or cry that his life was so bitter to actually be the savior. It was not that easy to be the savior. This matter is too far away. We should focus on the present. Tang Zheng shook his head, temporarily dispelling these messy thoughts. You are the savior. You make the decisions. Yan Qingyi spread out her hands. You have done so much for humanity. Our Yin family will definitely not stay out of this matter. If you have any orders, we will definitely not refuse. Chapter 787. Since the Yin family was so confident, Tang Zheng did not hold back and directly said, All of you, keep a close eye on the Song family. Once Song Jianan or Song Yu appear, inform me, and even try your best to stall them and wait for me to deal with them. Since the Song family had framed him, he would not be courteous and directly use the power of the Yin family to find them even if he had to dig 3 feet into the ground. If he could follow the vine and find clues about the Sword Pavilion or the Azure Dragon Palace, then he would have profited. Yin Patian did not hesitate at all, and immediately nodded in agreement. Tang Zheng, don't worry. The Song family has been coveting the Yin family for a long time. If I don't take care of him, I won't be able to sit still. Although the Yin family is weak, I still want to do my best. I wonder if there's anything we can do to help with the matter of the demon clan? Tang Zheng had originally only come to remind the other party about the return of the demon clan. Since the other party had taken the initiative to volunteer, he could not directly reject them and destroy their enthusiasm. Although the officials are confident in dealing with the demon clan is not an ordinary person after all. Send people to Dianan. That is the lair of the 100 Transformation Star-Lord. If the demon clan returns, they will definitely go there. I want to see if there are any fish that escaped the net. Tang Zheng muttered to himself. Don't worry. We will immediately send people to Dianan. We will not let go of any clues. You, Bayan, we don't have to fight him head-on. There are many experts in the demon clan, so fighting him head-on is not the best strategy. Tang Zheng warned. He did not wish for anything to happen to the people of the Yin family because of him. Regarding this relationship, the members of the Yin family were all moved. This was a true and righteous person. In addition, I would like to discuss more with Miss Yin about the prophecy technique. Tang Zheng was extremely curious about the prophecy technique and wanted to ask for advice. Shall we return to my Taoist temple? How could Tang Zheng refuse Yin Qingyi's warm invitation? After bidding farewell to the rest of the Yin family, Tang Zheng and Yin Qingyi returned to the Taoist temple. This Taoist temple was specially built for Yin Qingyi. It was very small, but it was built with great care. She was the only one in the temple. Although she had seen through the world of mortals, she was different from ordinary Taoist priests. She cultivated alone, accompanied by the green lamp and the ancient book. She did not interact with other Taoists. Therefore, the Tao she cultivated was completely different from other Taoists. Green tea, spring water, green lanterns, Taoist temple, everything exuded an otherworldly charm. Immersed in it, Tang Zheng's heart felt exceptionally tranquil, as if he had forgotten the troubles of the world. He slowly closed his eyes as if his soul was about to leave his body. Yin Qingyi quietly looked at him. Although she was not a cultivator or a martial artist, her perception was not weak. She could clearly feel the change in Tang Zheng's aura. Seeing Tang Zheng open his eyes again, Yin Qingyi praised, "You are fated with the Tao." Tang Zheng smiled and said, "What is the Tao?" "The Tao is in your heart. Once you understand it, you will naturally know," Yin Qingyi said. Tang Zheng shook his head. He did not want to discuss this vague topic with her. He went straight to the point and asked, "Why do you know the prophecy technique?" "Because this is my Tao. Once I understand it, I will naturally know the prophecy technique," Yin Qingyi calmly said. Tang Zheng frowned. These words were too mysterious. Once you understand the Tao in your heart, you will know the prophecy technique. No matter what, he could not understand the reason behind it. The key was that she was not a martial artist or a cultivator. Her body did not have inner strength or qi. It did not make sense. Could it be that once I understand the Tao in my heart, I will also know the prophecy technique? Tang Zheng asked. Yin Qingyi shook her head. That is not true. There are thousands and thousands of Taoists in the world. After understanding the Tao, they will all be different. Perhaps you will not know anything. Perhaps you will have a mysterious ability. You cannot generalize. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up. This was a theory that he had never heard before. Even Tian Chanzi had never mentioned it before. This was a completely new field. Could it be that not cultivating and just blindly comprehending the Tao would allow one to have supernatural powers? But with a living example in front of him, he had no choice but to believe it. Then how can one comprehend the Tao? Tang Zheng asked again. Yin Qingyi closed her eyes and spread out her hands. She faintly said, "If you are sincere, you will naturally be able to comprehend the Tao." Tang Zheng speechlessly rolled his eyes. This was much more mysterious than cultivating. There was not a single ancient book or book to learn from. Then how do you comprehend the Tao? Familiarizing myself with the 3,000 ancient books of the way and sincerely comprehending the Tao. Familiarizing yourself with the ancient books? Tang Zheng frowned. There are countless Taoist temples and Taoist priests in the world. Why do they not comprehend the Tao? Their hearts are not sincere. Yin Qingyi opened her eyes and lightly said. Tang Zheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. There was no way to continue this conversation. There was nothing substantial. It was all illusory Tao. He could not help but remember the heavenly Tao that the Empyrean fairy had once mentioned. Qin Shi Huang had killed too many people and was punished by the heavenly Tao. As a result, he was unable to obtain immortality. Then what exactly was the heavenly Tao? What is the heavenly Tao? Tang Zheng directly asked. Heavenly Tao? Yin Qingyi's expression became particularly solemn. The heavenly Tao is the ultimate Tao. I cannot comprehend it, so I do not know. Ultimate Tao. Tang Zheng sucked in a breath of cold air. Then can anyone comprehend the heavenly Tao? Yin Qingyi thought for a moment and nodded. Naturally. Then what kind of abilities will one obtain after comprehending the heavenly Tao? Tang Zheng asked curiously. I do not know. Yin Qingyi shook her head. Tang Zheng pursed his lips. She did not know anything. There was no way he could continue this discussion. He wanted to know more practical things. Then can you predict more information about the end of the world? Yin Qingyi regretfully said, that is all for now. All right, since there is nothing else, I will take my leave first. If there is any further information about the end of the world, I hope you can tell me. Of course. Goodbye. Tang Zheng stood up and extended his hand. Yin Qingyi grasped his hand. Just as she was about to say goodbye, her eyes suddenly lit up and her expression greatly changed. Huh? Tang Zheng saw that she was not letting go of his hand, and her expression was strange. He could not help but ask, what's wrong? Yin Qingyi did not answer. It was as if she was stunned. What's going on? Tang Zheng was confused. Isn't it just a handshake? Why isn't she letting go? Wait, something mysterious seems to be happening to her body. Just as he was at a loss, Yin Qingyi finally let go of his hand. She closed her eyes and softly fell to the ground. Be careful, Tang Zheng shouted and hurriedly hugged her waist. Under the large robe, her waist was extremely slender and elastic. Yin Qingyi fell into his arms. Wake up, what's wrong? Tang Zheng called out in concern. Yin Qingyi's eyelids twitched. She finally opened her eyes with difficulty and saw Tang Zheng's anxious face. His face was right in front of hers, and the two of them were in a very intimate position. She was lying in Tang Zheng's arms while Tang Zheng was hugging her waist. No matter how one looked at it, they looked like an intimate couple. I am fine, Yin Qingyi weakly said. Don't move. I'll take you to the bed and lie down for a while. Tang Zheng had already seen that behind the living room was a bedroom. Without any explanation, he picked her up and walked straight to the bedroom. When he walked in, he could not help but be surprised. The bedroom was not big and was very simple. There was only a hard wooden bed and a cabinet. The walls were bare without any decorations. It was extremely simple. This was thousands of miles away from an ordinary woman's room. It was extremely inconsistent with her identity as the young miss of the Yin family. Yin Qingyi was very weak. Although she felt that it was not appropriate for him to carry her like this, she could not struggle and refuse. Tang Zheng gently placed her on the bed and covered her with a blanket. He said, don't talk. Rest for a while. Yin Qingyi was helpless and could only close her eyes. Tang Zheng sat by the bed and curiously looked at her. Her face without any makeup was pale and weak. He really could not understand why she suddenly fainted. Could it be? He immediately recalled the scene just now. She had become like this after holding his hand. Could it be because she held his hand? Tang Zheng was dumbfounded. He raised his hand and looked at it. There was nothing strange. When did his hand have this kind of magic? It could even cause people to faint? No, he had held hands with many people. He had even had intimate contact with Feng Shishir and the others. There was absolutely no such situation. But if it was not a handshake, then what caused it? He could not figure it out. He could only wait for her to rest to find out the answer. He stared at her without blinking. Unknowingly, he was attracted by her appearance. What happened to her body that made her so different from ordinary women? Coarse hemp clothes, a temple, a woman alone. With all these companions, how could she endure such loneliness? Tang Zheng knew that he was a person who could endure loneliness, but he could not imagine what kind of life this was. If it were him, he would have collapsed long ago. In addition, her so-called Tao was also very mysterious, causing Tang Zheng to be enlightened as if he had opened a door to a new world. It was just that behind the door was a thick fog, so he could not see clearly what kind of scenery it was. Outside the window, it was completely dark. In the night, the sound of frogs and insects could be heard, making the temple even more peaceful. As if his heart had sensed something, he simply began to circulate his energy and cultivate. During the day, he had absorbed Song Jianan's energy and directly advanced to the gold level 3rd grade. The vast amount of energy was converted into true qi and stored in his body. He silently experienced the mysteries of the gold core 3rd grade, consolidating his cultivation. He gradually became one with the quiet environment. Unknowingly, he was completely immersed in the wonderful state of cultivation. After an unknown amount of time, Tang Zheng opened his eyes. His cultivation had been completely consolidated, and his true chi was much purer. But a face was close at hand looking at him. Seeing him open his eyes, she quickly retreated. She hid her embarrassment and lightly said, "You're awake." Looking at Yin Qingyi, Tang Zheng was overjoyed and said, "You're also awake? How do you feel now?" "I'm much better. Thank you for just now," Yin Qingyi said. "It's nothing. What happened to you just now? Are you not feeling well?" Tang Zheng asked with concern. "You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.